always, a better person. That aspect of saying that it is important that you breathe in positivity, inhale negativity. Welcome on board. A good moment to start us off. And as we are here looking forward to a great Wednesday, I hope that you had a great night and, are anticipating to greatness that comes along with the show. We have so much lined up for you, including Hitting the Kitchen that is on Tasty Wednesday. But most important is the talk of politics, current affairs right here in the country. A reprieve as government says that they are going to cushion Kenyans against the tough moments. And that is on the question of the high prices of unga starting July the 1st, and so we'll be having that conversation as we also take a look at a report that has been prepared by Boit on the very same, as well as talking about the meeting of the IEBC. That of course is set to meet presidential candidates, that is Right Honorable Raila Odinga, as well as Deputy President William Ruto, Agano's David Mwaure Wahiga, and Roots Party's, that is George Luchiri Wajakoya. And so they'll be having a conversation as pertaining to what they would require as presidential candidates to make sure that IEBC then guarantees us sanity in this process that for the longest of time, since the time where we got in multi-party politics, that has been marred by question marks and dots as to the question of credibility. And therefore we'll be looking to see whether this time around IEBC then will handle this differently, at a point as well where we understand that they have asked for more in terms of budget or budgetary allocations, but unfortunately they've not been so lucky to get the chunk of amounts that they would have wished to make sure that they guarantee the people of Kenya a clear and free process. But then again, they say they are up to task, ready to handle the election. Just how different will it be next time? Have they been able to seal all the loopholes that would have been there in the 2017 general elections, the ones that pushed us to a point where the presidential election was nullified? So we have this conversation this morning as we get to understand what this gentleman then will be presenting to us alongside their running mates, who a majority are ladies, apart from one, Rigathi Gachagua. So welcome on board as we as well unpack what played out yesterday in this joint session of conversation with the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and his deputy, or his running mate, that is Martha Karua, yesterday, towards just unpacking what they intend to present to the people of Kenya, as we as well await for the presidential debate that has been set on board by the country's journalistical angle. And so we get to this conversation. Karibu sana. Thank you so much for always keeping it TV47. My name is Linda Alela. We have so much lined up for you right here on Morning Cafe. So make sure that you're part and parcel of it. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela TV47KE. We sample these comments as we continue with the broadcast. You can as well call us live. The numbers will be running down on your screen. And importantly as well, the SMS short code, which is 22047. And we hear what you have to say as we continue. And yes, we have the Daily Nation, the Standard newspaper, as well as the People Daily, the papers of the day. We'll be looking at what they detail, the front pages, and later on to unpack the same with the guests that I'll be having on a set this very morning. The first aspect of the papers we look at, the Daily Nation. And yes, the Daily Nation details of how it is, economically tough for the country. Well, this is a bit different, but then again, we're going to get the actual copy of this. But to just look at what we have on the hard copy, the Daily Nation speaks of a state borrowing about 2.5 billion daily. And yes, a nation analysis reveals that the Kenyatta's 2 administration has been incurring debts at a daily average rate of about 2.5 shillings or 2.5 billion shillings, while spending about 2.4 billion every day on repayments since July, that is last year. This means that for every 1 billion or 1 billion borrowed, or for every 1 shilling borrowed, then the period under review, an equivalent of about 0.9 shillings was paid back to creditors. And so this is a story that has been captured on the front page, extensively expounded on page 7. And this then clearly speaks of the tough times that we have as a country, and just how then the governments, the current government and the previous ones have dug us deep into the pit of debt, as we have members of parliament presenting, options and bills in Parliament towards making sure that this is addressed. Well, unfortunately, we saw the review of the debt ceiling upwards by the National Assembly and approved by the Senate, and therefore from the debt ceiling of 9 trillion it goes to 10 trillion. What does it mean, especially at this point that we do not have great mechanisms of making sure that we manage the debt that we incur as a country? And so this is a conversation that is quite unfortunate, but certainly worth having, and that is exactly what we'll be doing in a bit. Rebels rock the boats, and the fight that is within, that is in Kenya Kwanza as well as Azimio One Kenya. Fallouts over negotiated democracy, as we are seeing, those ones that are being considered to be weak candidates are being called upon to shelve their interest, to push the bid of those ones that appear to be strong on ground. That's to make sure that they're able to secure the votes. This then will be instrumental towards making sure that the votes of the two sides are not split. But then again, this is not sitting well with the majority that have been told to shelve their interest for others, as captured on page 12 and 13 of what ramification will this be. We have had this conversation and we continue to have the same. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga says that, that sole mandate of picking the leadership that they want is bestowed in the hands of the people, and he says that he has no interest of making sure that it is all about ODM, the six-piece conversation that has been there. They call it suti or so to speak. On the other side, though, we have seen Deputy President William Ruto calling upon those ones that are his supporters to consider having UDA candidates across in the different sectors of leadership. And so we'll be looking at that as we continue. It's 40 days to the general election. Indeed, time is moving so fast, and we need to understand where we position ourselves as a people, that in having these conversations that we have every morning and so much more. United Nations calls for investigations into the Melilla massacre. Quite unfortunate occurrences. Right officers voiced the alarm as the deaths of about 27 African immigrants as they tried to storm the heavily fortified border that is between the Moroccan region of Nador and as well as Spanish enclave of Melilla. That is Friday. A story captured on page 24 on the World News, and it's quite unfortunate. We hope that justice then may be found. And this brings us to the Standard newspaper, and as it is right here, United Nations warns on the dangers of marijuana use. A story captured on page 3. Will this be a dent to the campaign program of Wajakoya, which is what he's hugely campaigning on? Yes, is a question that we'll be looking at later on as we continue with the gentleman that will be here, as we also try to unpack what the Roots Party leader is presenting to us, and impact of U.S. ban on abortion. That is in the World page, a story captured on page 25. How important would this be? Well, we understand that in most of the countries across the global fraternity, abortion then is a crime. It is not legalized. And well, every individual has a life or has a right to life. But then again, there are instances where, the doctors will have to do the math and decide whether it would be wise to conduct an abortion. Well, Raila new demands ahead of the IEBC talks, and this is the conversation that is here, and we await to see what will happen during these very talks that are very crucial and important. The Azimio flag bearer and his running mate Karua open up on what makes their ticket tick. And of course, on a day, his coalition wrote to IEBC on 7 issues he wants addressed ahead of today's meeting with the 4 presidential candidates, and as captured on page 9 and 10. And so we'll be keenly following up on this event right here on TV47 to keep you up to speed as to the same. Speak of the charter deals, Ruto new path to power, and Kenya Kwanza banks on new strategy of signing charters with interest groups to lock votes as the race to State House gets tighter as well. We are waiting to see their manifesto that they are set to present to us, and just how we get to unpack the same and understand in terms of the manifestos, in terms of the promises that they present to the people, just who will be the best bet for the country. And we speak of peace and peace and peace. Those are the key stories that have been captured in the papers this morning. still able not to get the soft copy of the People Daily, but in the event that we get it before we're out of this space, then I'll definitely be here to make sure that you get what it has to say this morning. And now let's take a look at what my team has prepared this morning. And the Azimio candidate Raila Odinga and his running mate now want Deputy President William Ruto to own up, that is, to the mess of the Jubilee government. In a joint media interview at his current office, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and Karua say Ruto cannot run away from the Jubilee government's failures while at the same time taking credit for the success.
It is unfair really to just do a blanket blame government. Somebody who is earning a salary, has got over 250 security of government defending him, is using government vehicles and equipment to do the campaign. To come out and say he's not in government, it asks mtu wa kitendawili ndio anajua yeye ndio yako ndani ya serikali. Mimi nilitolewa kwa serikali. Kama ulitolewa kwa serikali, you do the decent thing that most responsible people do. You resign. That is what Mr. Bill Kagia did. That is what Jaramogi Oginga Odinga did. You resign and then you become an ordinary person. But you don't say you're out of government and you're blaming that same government, but you're earning the salary from the same government. If that is not hypocrisy, then I don't know what hypocrisy is.
I think if I may add just a little, you can't also choose which part of government you will claim credit for and which part you disown. If somebody is standing in the podium and telling people that I've influenced this to happen in government, they must also take the blame for any shortcoming of government. And that's the way it is.
All right, Deputy President William Ruto's Kenya Kwanza Alliance has extended its vote hunt across the nation, wooing voters from larger Turkana County, led by Ford Kenya's Moses Wetangula and Musalia Mudavadi. The Kenya Kwanza Brigade pitched camp in West Pokot County earlier, that is Tuesday, before traversing Turkana County, where mining extraction of natural minerals from a rich region, or from this very rich region, was the topic of the day. Micah Gungu with that.
In Kenya Kwanza's flag bearer William Ruto's absentia, the Alliance core principals Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula led the entire brigade in the northern part of the country, hunting for votes to solve the August 50+1 equation. The leaders urging area residents to rally their support behind Ruto's bid for the House on the Hill to form the government together for development cause.
Mambo ya mafuta, mambo ya madini yenu, mambo ya ujirani mwema, mambo ya capital rustling, mambo ya shida tulio nayo na jirani hapa South Sudan, hii yote lazima ingie kwa charter ya Turkana.
Speaking in a Kale center in Lodwar, Wetangula maintained that Kenya Kwanza was the only option for forgotten fish farming in Lake Turkana, as well as uplifting of livestock keeping.
Serikali lazima itengeneze livestock marketing council, na ulisema juu ya procurement ya watu wa chini hawapati, hata NGO usijali hiyo. Tukileta hiyo hasa na fund, mama mboga atapata pesa hapo.
Handshake ya porojo. Sasa unga imegonga 250 kwa packet ya kilo 2.
They urge pastoralists to practice economical livestock keeping, avoiding devastating effects of persistent drought. Wetangula criticizing their opponents for what he termed as mismanagement of the top leadership that has occasioned to high cost of living.
Mafuta imegonga 160. Hata kwa miaka 40 kwa historia ya Kenya, bei ya chumvi pia imepanda.
Msichana wa salon atapata pesa na atapata bila riba.
Wamezungusha sonko ndio huyo kotini wapi siku zinaisha. He will not be on the ballot.
Tofauti ya William Ruto na Kenya Kwanza, sisi hatuna haja na kubadilisha katiba.
Meanwhile, UDA Deputy President Designate Rigathi Gachagua pitched camp in Nyahururu town for the better part of the day Tuesday, where he presided over the Laikipia County Economic Engagement Forum at the Nyahururu Golf Club. Gachagua took his time to listen to recommendations from local leaders and residents on their wish list from the UDA and Kenya Kwanza coalition should they win the forthcoming general election scheduled for 9th August.
Tumesema we don't care wewe unatoka wapi, because tumekuwa na rais hapa ametoka hapa, na rais akiwa ametoka hapa na mlimchagua. Watu ya Laikipia mumepigwa hamjapigwa? Mumeumizwa na majangili hamjaumizwa? So it does not matter.
He exuded confidence that UDA will win with a big margin and hence called on Kenyans to turn in large numbers and vote for them.
Mambo ya watu kuwawa na kupigwa Laikipia tukichaguliwa, it is a thing of the past. It will never happen. Ever happen.
Mike Kagongo, TV 47.
And Azimio One Kenya presidential candidate Raila Odinga took his campaigns to Maasai Land, that is in Narok County, where he has cleared the air over the alleged plans by his coalition to axe weak candidates from affiliate parties. Odinga has insisted on bestowing power to the electorate to make a better choice to ensure coalition clinches the power. Paul Kirubi with that.
The Azimio la Umoja One Kenya presidential candidate Raila Odinga has cleared the air over alleged plans by his coalition to ex-weak candidates from affiliate parties to enable the coalition clinch power come August. Odinga asked the electorate to make a better choice that will lead in the polls.
Mimi na wachani nyinyi wenyewe mtaamua. Sio sawa? Sio mtaamua. Mimi najua nyinyi ni werevu. Mnajua kukagua vizuri.
His rallying call to the Maa community, promising to address the Maasai Mau forest conservation and management of the finances from the world-famous Maasai Mara Game Reserve.
Kwa manufaa ya kizazi hichi na ile ambayo inakuja. Sawa sawa? Sawa. Pili mambo ya Maasai Mara. Maasai Mara vile vile tunahifadhi. Wale ambao wanataka kuiba mambo ya Maasai Mara, mwambie hao.
Odinga's allies under the Azimio la Umoja coalition termed DP William Ruto as a traitor who has been in government but done nothing to address the challenges facing the community.
Wale ni adui. Akija hapa anajifanya mzuri, akienda huko anasema vamia Mao. Vamia Mao. Huyo ni adui wenu ama ni rafiki? Ni adui. Ashindwe asishindwe.
Kilimo katika nchi ya Kenya. Nani alikula mahindi katika nchi ya Kenya? Sasa baba, tunakuomba ukiingia katika serikali, tunataka unga ifike 50 shillings, si ndio? Ndio hawa vijana pia wapate chakula na pia tutake kazi, si ndio?
Yule jamaa mwingine amekuwa makamu wa rais sasa karibu miaka 10. Na kwa miaka 10 bado anatembea akitoa ahadi. Sasa nikachukua nataka kufanya na ahadi na ulikuwa wakati wa kutekeleza na ukashindwa. Si ndio?
Be over when people are still living in the forest and they are being protected by the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, ambaye anaitwa William Ruto. Tunataka hiyo Mau forest ifadhiwe.
Sibling rivalry between leaders from the coalition played out as MP Moitalel Ole Kenta hit out at Senator Ledama Olekina for failing to hit the ground to campaign for Odinga, accusing him of spending time in social media.
Mimi nashangaa watu hawaelewi lugha ama ni nini shida yao? Hawaelewi. Mimi na Junet tutakaa na baba mpaka baba aseme sasa nimemaliza uongozi wa miaka 10, sasa endeni mtafute njia nyingine.
Odinga has promised goodies to the Maa community, including addressing the challenges of education, promising that his government will roll out free education if elected. Paul Kirobi, TV 47.
Candidates vying for different seats under the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition have continued to lobby for zoning to weed out candidates who are perceived as weak in a bid to solidify the coalition's base in Nairobi. In Kirinyaga County, Jubilee gubernatorial candidate wants NARC Kenya candidate to withdraw from the race to avert a possible split of the Azimio vote in the county.
A day before the Independent Electorate Boundaries Commission IEBC gazettes the names of different aspirants in the August 9th general election, party zoning has ostensibly caused jitters among constituent parties of the Azimio la Umoja coalition in Nairobi. ODM Party Secretary General Edwin Sifuna has insisted the party will weed out all weak candidates before the IEBC deadline.
Kama haufurahii hiyo ni shauri yako. Sina namna hiyo. Kama uko na shida na hiyo ni shauri yako. Kwa hivyo tunataka katika constituency zetu hapa Makadara candidate ni mmoja, George Aladwa. Afadhali tuseme hii kitu mapema kushinda watu waende wote kwa ballot wafanye nini? Waanguke wote. Na wengine saa hii unawaambia kujeni tuongee, bedroom ya baba iko na vyumba vingi, tunaweza kukutafutia kitu, anakutusi anakuambia wewe unaweza pea nani kazi?
Baba na Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta, mimi waliponiita State House nilijua hawa watu wameniheshimu, kwa sababu wangeniambia tu kutoka mbali, wangeambia Wanyonyi toka, lakini waliniita State House, wakanikalisha chini, wakanieleza kwa nini nitoke, si ndio? Lakini tulijua mimi nilikuwa nimekanyaka Nairobi sana, si ndio? Nilikuwa nimetembea, lakini bado mimi nimesema hiyo kiti ya governor lazima Azimio ichukue hiyo kiti.
The coalition aver that the zoning is intended to solidify the coalition support base in the county and several parts of the country.
Candidate wa Jubilee atoke, candidate wa Wiper atoke. Hii zone ni zone ya ODM. Na ndani ya Azimio, hiyo ndio kweli wa maneno. Wangapi mnanunga mkono kwa hiyo?
Hapa Mathare tuko na candidate moja wa UDA na tuko na Azimio ile. You tell me, how are we going to make the president who is Raila awe president na awe watu wakati tunagawa kura zikiwa za Azimio?
In Kirinyaga County, Jubilee gubernatorial candidate Charles Kefiro and his running mate have urged Azimio running mate Martha Karua to withdraw the NARC Kenya gubernatorial candidate to avert a further split of the Azimio vote in the county.
Na kulikuwa na watu wengi walikuwa wameapply na walikuwa wakitaka kukuwa deputy president ama running mate wa baba. Na tukakaa na Jubilee kaonelea ule candidate anafaa ni Martha Karua. Na Martha Karua ni wana Kenya. Kwa hivyo objectively watu wa Jubilee wakauliza wale watu walikuwa na ambitions za kukua kwa hiyo kiti, tuachie Martha Karua. Na sisi kama Jubilee tukamsupport before achaguliwe na wakati amechaguliwa. Na kila mahali tukienda kama wana Jubilee tunasema ni baba na mama.
Chini hapa chini kiti ya governor tunaomba Mheshimiwa Martha aachilie Jubilee. Wacha na Kenya iproduce deputy president, lakini kiti ya governor iende kwa Jubilee. Na Jubilee ni CK na Ndamberi.
Political parties have until Wednesday to have expunged names of candidates whom they do not intend to front all the way to the ballot. Mwangi Maina, TV 47, Nairobi.
Three Nakuru members of parliament have recorded statements with police over the mysterious Mawanga killings allegedly perpetrated by organized criminal gang dubbed Confirm. And as Chichi Josephine now reports, over 120 people have been arrested in relation to the killings.
Addressing journalists in Nakuru after displaying the recovered weapons and stolen items from the gangs, the regional commissioner said police have so far arrested 128 suspects and were pursuing 108 others who were mentioned by the public on the Mawanga killings.
Kufikia sasa tuko na cases 108, 108 total cases ambayo inahusika na hawa wahuni, na wale wameshikwa ni 128. Tuko na suspects 128 na tutahakikisha wote wamekanyaga kotini.
However, Maalim assured Nakuru residents that adequate security agents have been deployed in all hotspot areas where the criminal gangs were allegedly operating from, in addition to intensifying a 24-hour security operation and patrols in the region.
Jambo lingine tumezidisha ile mambo kupiga doria kwa sababu tume-identify zile hotspots, zile sehemu katika Nakuru North, Nakuru East na Nakuru West na si mambo ya kwenda kuonyesha wananchi siku 2-3. Tunasema hiyo itakuwa ni kazi itadumu forever.
Residents who are now living in fear pointed fingers at a Nakuru member of parliament whom they have accused of financing the gang, which they said he uses for political leverage during campaigns, and now want proper action taken against them.
Zizi hata tunagoba kutoka nyumbani kwa sababu hii kijana ni kinaonekana iko kitu kinaingiana na chiadha kidogo, kwa sababu hiyo kijana hawezi kufanya kitu bila kuongozwa ni mtu binafsi. Kwa hivyo tunaomba Uhuru wa Kenyatta, mwana wa mthamaki, ndo na kuomba utupe security ya kutushuka, kwa sababu hata hiyo uchaguzi hatujui tutafanyia wapi.
David Gikaria, Nakuru East Member of Parliament, was earlier Tuesday summoned by the DCI over accusation of funding the gang, denied the allegations of being involved with the confirmed gang that has been accused of killing women in Mawanga.
Sihusiki kwa abetting, sponsoring, supporting or even financing. Kwa sababu hiyo ndio nasemekana tunawaleta, na that element ya politics tunawaleta ndio watatumika before, on and after the election.
Among the recovered items included 40 knives and swords, 10 motorbikes, 436 mobile phones, over 300 rolls of bang, drugs including heroin, among others. Investigations are ongoing pertaining this particular issue, but the question remains, who are the people behind the killing of the 5 women? Reporting for TV47 from Nakuru County, my name is Chichi Josephine.
Now, Kenyans can now breathe a sigh of relief as the government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, plans to suspend all levies on imports for maize and animal feed products effective 1st of July next month. And the move is aimed at availing maize flour at an affordable price in the country to avert the crisis, as Edah Wambui details.
Kenyans can now breathe a sigh of relief after Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya announced suspension of all levies on imports for maize and animal feed products effective 1st July this year. This initiative is aimed at lowering the cost of maize, flour and animal feed in the country 90 days before the next maize harvest.
I have said no single agency or government service will be charging anything, any charge on maize, and we are very specific. It's on maize and also animal feed.
The price of the commodity has gone to a record high of over 200 shillings per packet of 2 kg. The same commodity was costing at an average of 144 shillings last month. The price of a 90 kg bag of maize jumped to 6,500 per bag from 5,000 in a week's time.
From 1st of July, no charges will be levied on imported maize that is coming from the East African community and Comesa region and anywhere else that is entering the country.
CS Munya was speaking at the Namanga border, where he met various stakeholders to address the maize shortage crisis. The new measures will fast-track the clearance of trucks at the border points where a major snarl-up has been witnessed.
But in addition to that, we will also suspend any levy that is, or charge that is levied on raw materials that are used for processing animal feed. Because the crisis we have is not just food for humans. We also have a crisis for food for animals.
Political leaders have been making promises on lowering the prices if they clinch power in August. Edah Wambui, TV47.
Yes, we all look forward to that. Now, the Forum for African Women Educationalists has launched a new program which aims at significantly reducing the incidences of teenage pregnancy in Kenya. This is after a number of girls became pregnant during the almost 1-year break when schools were closed indefinitely due to the COVID-19 program. Dubbed Imarisham's Chana will be implemented in 20 counties in the country and would later be scaled up to other counties.
During the peak of COVID-19 in the country, a number of girls, especially from informal settlements and villages, were impregnated. This brought setbacks in their lives as some were forced to drop out of school as they embraced responsibilities of being parents. It is this that has led to the birth of a program dubbed Imarisha Msichana by the Forum for African Women Educationalists, which is aimed at reducing cases of teenage pregnancies in the country.
Pimwa nikapatikana niko na mimba. Nilianza kuchapiwa hapo mpaka home tukiteremka tu. Sasa by the time hata tunafika home, area mzima ilikuwa ishajua niko na mimba. Haujaambia mtu. Nilichapwa mpaka home. Kufika wanauliza hii mimba ni ya nani, nakataa kusema. Niko na huyu mama ataniua. Nikamwambia ni ya Edu. Kaniambia ulianza hata kuongeleshana na mvuta bangi wewe. So akaenda karipoti huyo Edu, huko Dandora kuna watu wanaitwa nyumba 10, akamripoti kwa nyumba 10. Huyo Edu akitoka kazi, hao watu wa nyumba 10 walienda wakamraid. Wakamtandika. Kwani unapea underage mimba? Unajua hiyo ni police case, walimtandika. Hivyo vile alitandikwa, aliachiliwa, so kesho yake ilikuwa mama aende ripoti, akapotea hivyo.
Teenage pregnancy is one of the social ills that affect our country, and the cases seem to increase every day, especially with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, which further exacerbated girls' vulnerability.
Teenage pregnancies continues to be one of the key hindrances to girl child education in Kenya. Some face discrimination in the communities they come from as they are branded bad girls. But through the program, clubs known as Tuseme will be started in schools, and through them, learners will have a platform that will empower them to speak out on challenges they go through as they develop.
Tumeelewana huyo boyfriend wangu, tumeendelea. Hivyo sasa asema haya leo tutaenda tujaribu kwa mapenzi. Mimi siku 6 tukaenda, siku ya kwanza, ya pili, ya tatu, mwezi sikupata, wa kwanza, wa pili, wa tatu, niko na mimba. Tulikuwa marafiki ndo tukaelewana mpaka tukapata ujauzito.
And we are also trying to see how we can have friendlier policies that can create an enabling environment for these girls to confidently and comfortably go back into school. So it's happening in many other countries, but at different levels. There are those countries that have policies. There are those countries that don't have policies. Where there are no policies, we are working towards establishing those policies.
Imarisha Msichana will run for 3 years from June 2022 to June 2024. The main beneficiaries are teen mothers and adolescents from the ages of 9 to 18 years and young women aged 19 to 25 years. In the framework of the program, young girls will be provided with useful knowledge and necessary skills to be able to fully transition to adulthood and help them become productive members of their communities.
We shall utilize the Empower Us Today platform to work in the identified schools in 20 counties, that is 8 schools per county, where Tuseme and Red Cross school clubs have been established to facilitate digital content focusing on sexual and reproductive health and other emerging topics of need for holistic development of the students.
The program will first be implemented in 20 counties in Kenya, namely Nakuru, Nairobi, Machakos, Elgeyo Marakwet, Kiambu, Garissa, Bungoma, Kakamega, Nyeri, Migori, Murang'a, Kajiado, Narok, Homa Bay, Trans Nzoia, Nyandarua, Busia, Meru, Siaya and Turkana, and will later be scaled up to other counties. Sharon Baranga, TV 47.
Certainly a great move there. Now, domestic workers in the country traveling abroad, especially to the Middle East countries, can now have a sigh of relief. This is after the government shared its plan to set up safe houses in the said countries in a bid to provide safety for the Kenyans, as well as have a board as they process their documents to travel back to the country. And as Patronila Goren reports, the ministry has received a budget allocation of 70 million.
Karibu sana We celebrate you.
Speaking during a stakeholders conference in the Labour sector on Tuesday in Mombasa, the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Labour, Simon Chelugui, revealed that the government has plans to set up safe houses in some countries in the Middle East to assist in easing the challenges that Kenyan workers go through, especially domestic workers.
We are looking at establishing 2 homes. We will start with 1, and possibly that will be in Riyadh, the headquarters, and we will go to Jeddah before we progress to other countries. We are doing this for the first time, so we will learn a few things from the first pilot safe home.
Further, the ministry says stringent measures will be taken against recruitment agencies not abiding by the requirements and policies put in place by the ministry.
A small group of agencies continue to engage in unethical recruitment, which has exposed our migrant workers to abuse and ill treatment. The likes of what we saw in the skit, the 4 Stars recruitment agency, which is fake. Let me bring to you bad news today. We are coming for you.
However, the Executive Director for the Federation of Kenya Employers, Jacqueline Mugo, says there is a need for the government to put more effort into engaging more stakeholders in the sector to eliminate the challenges of Kenyan workers abroad.
Kenya has done some good work and has actually signed some BLAs, bilateral labor agreements, including those with private employment agencies, where private employment agencies are involved. But by and large, employers and private employment agencies are not involved in this BLA process, so there's a gap.
According to a report presented to the Senate by the ministry, 97 Kenyans have lost their lives in unknown circumstances while working abroad. The government is in the process of tightening its legislative mechanism at the Ministry of Labour to ensure they phase out rogue recruiting agencies as well as ensure they face the law. Petronila Goren for TV47 in Mombasa County.
Well, it is a matter most fall as village of Flyover at the borders of Nyandarua and Kiambu counties mourn the deaths of a 78-year-old man and his wife who were allegedly murdered by close relative by blunt objects at their home in undisclosed motive. Our reporter Willie Dennis Njiru with the story.
At Flyover section along the Naivasha-Nairobi highway, receding smoke amidst a chilling environment after runaway homicide to a 78-year-old man and his wife who were found Sunday morning brutally attacked. The old grandma died at the scene.
Hakuna mzozo wa ardhi. Ni vile tu watu wanakuanga hawajijui. Wanataka kupata vitu za bwerere.
Sarah Wangoi, a third born in a family of 6, who also lost her son to a murder incident at Maimahiu 18 months ago, says the incident has sparked chill to the family and the village.
Nikakuta mamangu akichukuliwa na askari na wakamchukua, tukaenda Naivasha, tukamweka huko Naivasha. Sasa kutoka hapo ndio tulirudi. Usiku ndiye babangu naye alikufa. Sababu alikuwa amepelekwa surgery. Sababu walimstabilize na akakuwa mzuri. Wakasema wampeleke surgery wamtoe clot. Ilikuwa kwa kichwa. Sasa walipokuwa wakimtoa clot ndio sasa alisakam.
She says this is a case of an enemy within, as this 10-acre piece of land, not an inheritance, but his father's toil worth over 40 million shillings, could have been the cause for the cold murder.
Wanataka tu kupata vitu haraka. Sasa wanaona heri waue wazazi ndio wapate vitu. Sababu sioni kama ni mtu ametoka mbali. Ni watu wa huku nyumbani.
Tuesday, the family traveled to Kijabe Mission Hospital to collect the body of their slain father to Naivasha for post-mortem to ascertain possible cause of death before moving the bodies of the two to Uplands Funeral Home for preservation.
Hata mimi nilikuja Kijabe kwanza, nikakuta daktari akaniambia alipelekwa huko akiwa na temperature ya 7 degrees. Hakukuwa usiku sana. Ama ni kitu tu walipoingia, sababu hata mamangu hakuwa ameoga hata miguu. Alikuwa kwa shamba. Na saa hiyo ndio walikuja wakagongwa. Sijui nani. Sasa hatujui kulienda aje.
The family has been skeptical over the security of the area, with the home hardly without any flock due to sporadic animal thefts. The date of the burial is yet to be set 4 days later. Reporting for TV47 from Flyover in Kiambu County, I'm Willie Dennis Njiru.
Now, residents of Uasin Gishu will, for the first time, be part of a manifesto that is set to promote peace before, during, and after the election. This comes after the National Cohesion and Integration Commission (NCIC) reports classified Uasin Gishu as a red alert zone. The said manifesto aims at bringing leaders and citizens together so as to urge residents to be at peace during their campaigns and shun from inciting people, but instead preach peace and harmony. The stakeholders were, however, displeased by the rate at which the various political leaders sent their representatives to the meeting instead of showing up in person.
Here this evening to witness those aspirants from Uasin Gishu who are going for elected positions. We have come to witness them committing themselves to peaceful elections, that they are going to be the agents of peace, and that wherever they will be, they will promote peace and conduct peaceful elections. So we are very grateful that these candidates have come, because peace has to begin at the grassroots level. That is where, if we don't have peace at that level, then we will not have peace at the county level or even at the national level.
Tumesikitishwa sana, hawakuleta picha mzuri. Mimi nilitarajia wote watalipatia uzito swala hivi. Mfano Bishop ameacha shughuli zake zote kuja kwa jambo kama hili, mtu aleta mwakilishi wake. Tunawaambia siku nyingine wakipata mwaliko kama huu wasipuuze, kwa sababu wanapopuuza inatuvunja moyo paka sisi viongozi wa kidini, kwa sababu kama mtu mwenyewe hakuhudhuria ni ngumu kumlaumu wakati kitakapotokea chochote.
All right, thank you so much, for the stories. Of course, the team, and it's now time that we shift gears to the conversation. It will be a great conversation that is lined up for you this morning. Japheth Morocco will be joining us for this very conversation that is about what is happening in the country politically. We'll also be having Wakili Philip Ambole, who will be joining us for this very conversation, and as well as Edah Wambui, who's an aspirant member of parliament of Kabete. Again, I'll allow them the chance to introduce themselves as we get to these crucial matters that are detailed in the papers this morning, but most importantly, they are pertaining to what is happening right here. And it's a sigh of relief, or so to speak, well, though not in totality, because when we're talking about the high cost of living, we know that one of the commodities that get people, a little bit disgruntled of this is the question of unga. And now that the government has confirmed that they are making sure to set up strategies of cautioning the people of Kenya, then we say indeed it is a sigh of relief, but not in totality, because the cost of living has affected all commodities, approximately everything in the market today. And so people will tell you when they get to the supermarket, it's always disappointment after disappointment. So as we speak of this, most important as a people, we ask ourselves just how set are we to make sure that we get the right crop of leadership that then will give us a reprieve on these difficulties that we're having, but most importantly, bring us the development that we all seek. Just how possible is that with this kind of borrowing that has been projected from the sitting government that, exits or, finds its time expiring on the 9th of August. The next government that will take this, the next person that takes up the mantle of the CEO of the country, just how are they able to bounce back? The Right Honorable Raila Odinga tells us that he knows where the money is, he knows the strategies, and him alongside his deputy, that is Martha Karua, are set to make sure that this change is witnessed by the people of Kenya. The Deputy President William Ruto as well says he will empower those ones that are on the ground to make sure that it will be an economy that is driven by everybody for the benefit of everybody. But questions linger as to why he's not been able to do that, as he is the sitting Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. So we get to this conversation alongside my guests once again. As I have said, Edna is here with us, Japheth as well is here with us, and we also have Wakili Ambole. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for creating time. Let's get to it. And the papers this morning, perhaps I should give you time to say hi to the people, the very first times that you find yourself on Morning Cafe. We start with you, the lady? We start with the lady, yes. It's only fair that we do.
Thank you so much. I'm Edah, not Edna.
It's Edah, yeah? They said Edna, all right, yes.
I'm a member of, I'm a candidate in Kabete for Member of Parliament, or rather Member of National Assembly.
Yeah.
and I'm happy to be here. It's a beautiful morning, although a bit cold, but I'm glad to be here and nice to meet you.
Right.
It's a pleasure.
Wakili, it's a pleasure, eh?
Yes.
Wakili wanasema they don't talk much unless it's time for koya, wanasema to straight to the point. Japheth.
Okay. Asante sana. Kwa majina naitwa Morocco M. Japheth. Mimi ni member wa Azimio Young Turks for Anti-Sake Alliance, ama Yodha, na organizing secretary wa Nyambene Mira Traders Association, and the president of Bunge la Wazalendo.
All right, nice.
Yes, so I'm so delighted to be invited hosted here today, this morning.
Bunge la Wazalendo ni tofauti na Bunge la Mwananchi,
yes,
sio? Hao wanakaa pande gani hao Bunge la Wazalendo?
Pale katikati ya City
Hall, yeah? I think I have seen it. You know how powerful they are. I mean, I don't know whether you've had the chance to see them.
Yes.
Ile siasa inaendelea hapo ni kali sana.
Noma sana.
Noma sana, eh? All right, that's great. So you're headed to Nyeri? Straight from here?
Yes, it is from here. I'm going to Nyeri to run for my presidential candidate, Baba Raila Amolo Odinga. Yes, and I'm the pioneer of the Raila's most popular slogan, Baba while you are away.
Oh,
yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, so the Baba while you are away person is here with us. Oh, that's
yes.
a nice one. That really is a nice one. And so Baba tries his level best to penetrate the mountain. Philip, do you suppose he has done something? You know, this starts from that very moment where the Kenya Kwanza presidential candidate picked Rigathi Gachagua as his own deputy president, and on this other side, Baba picked, you know, Martha Karua. Of course, there was not so much of, you know, a difference in the question of time. Surprise card that has worked in favor of Baba, or you think otherwise?
It has worked in his favor, but then you have to agree that it comes in a bit late. Raila, rather Ruto has been doing a lot of groundwork in Central. We will all agree that he's the preferred presidential candidate in that particular area of the country. And it would be hard to overturn that. So far, you can see the number of UDA candidates, the strength of the UDA candidates, and this again contributes to the popularity of the party on the ground. If you compare this to what Baba has done, Baba actually has had to pull out. Now it is Jubilee which is fielding candidates there. I understand ODM has no candidates in Central. Equally, he's left the campaigning to Martha Karua, meaning that basically his candidature has not been well received in Mount Kenya region.
All right.
So as much as we would like to say that Karua has reversed the gains that Ruto made, I think it is too early to say that. Yes.
All right, well, Edah and Wambui, your second name sells you out. So I will assume that you are from the mountain unless you tell me otherwise. Looking at what Baba has done so far, first of all, yes, it has been statistically proven that Ruto had indeed managed to rule the people of the mountain first. As Wakili would say, perhaps Baba has not managed to undo this in totality. But does Baba really need to undo the whole, you know, penetration of Ruto, or he just needs a certain chunk of, you know, the votes in the mountain based on what, you know, on how he has performed in the previous, you know, moments of election? So perhaps he just needs something, a small chunk that he would get. And do you think he has managed to get that small chunk that he would wish for?
I think he has. Progressively, he's doing very well. Given that we started at a point where Ruto and his battalion had taken over. And we could see a lot of support for UDA. And it looked, at some point, it looked like it would never be challenged. It looked so like Ruto was so strong. Until the appointment of Martha Karua as a DP candidate. And since then, we have seen that now people are beginning to have faith in Azimio. We have seen more and more aspirants now come out boldly to profess that they will drum up support for Azimio. And we've also seen voters, or rather Mount Kenya voters, warm up to the idea of an Azimio presidency. So progressively, I would say that Raila has managed to up the numbers. I don't think it's the desired number. They still have to work more on that, which is why I think they're bringing the issue of zoning. In Kiambu, we do have ODM candidates they're just not so popular because of the party. And you understand, because at the end of the day, we align along the tribal lines. We gravitate towards parties that are friendly to, or people deem friendly. So ODM is not in that list in Central Kenya, but they have 1 or 2 candidates. What I expect, they keep saying that their target is 30% of the total voters. I think they're going to hit the target. Simply because the other side also seems to be, slowing down. The pace that they had come with, or the momentum, is slowly starting to fade out.
What could be informing this? Why would you argue that way?
There are a number of reasons. Finances, for example, you can see Azimio is somehow overpowering them in terms of the flamboyance of the campaign, the strategy. Azimio seems to have a very nice strategy, especially targeting the youth. And so it's the talk of town.
But the youth today do not really have the numbers as would have expected. That is according to the audit that was conducted, KPMG, and the register that was released by the IEBC. Evidently, the youth do not really have the numbers. And perhaps at that very moment, it got very many candidates trying to switch their strategy towards winning those ones that are 35 and above.
They do. 45% is quite a number. We are talking about 20 million voters, 45% of them being the youth. Remember, this is a country where 60% of our general population is comprised of youth. So you cannot ignore it and say that it's not, because at the end of the day, you also have to look at issues such as voter apathy and, depending on the weather and other things that make people turn out or not turn out during the voting day. You expect that a majority of those who will turn up will be the youth. So I would not really brush it off and say that the youth don't have numbers. They do. We've also seen very many youthful aspirants running. I'm 29, I'm running for MNA. So, and it cuts across. We have very many youthful aspirants who will motivate the youth to come out and vote. So they do have the numbers, and that's why every presidential candidate, even Wajakoya, is targeting the youth. And then again, if you look at the way we maneuver during elections, the youth today have been able to overcome very many barriers and obstacles. Issues to do with tribal aligning, along tribal lines has been dealt with by the youth. So we are seeing less and less antagonism during this election. We are seeing less, machafuko in English,
intolerance and all
intolerance,
that.
So we have a lot of optimism. So I think that is going to work in favor of Baba.
All right. Well, I will want to use your slogan, Baba while you were away. And so it appears that while Baba was away, Ruto was indeed penetrating the mountain. And I speak of the question of the mountain because you tell me that you are headed to Nyeri today. And so we just need to understand how much of a gain will this, traversing of the different parts of the central, counties be of importance to this moment of Baba. Do you suppose if he came in slightly early, because after all they were campaigning, and after all it was almost obvious that Baba is going to be on the ballot, if at all he came in slightly early, it could have been probably a tie with the Kenya Kwanza side?
Kwanza, mimi ni mzaliwa wa Mount Kenya. Nimetoka mahali inaitwa Meru. And I've been in a liberation struggle for long, led by Raila Odinga. And several liberators from Mount Kenya, some of them who have been who is not alive today, wale ambao walikuwa wanapigania second liberation, like Kenneth Njindo Matiba, like South Rubia, Joe Kadhango, Gitobu Manyara, na wengine. Wasa turundi katika historia kidogo. Sisi kama watu wa Mlima Kenya, number one, tunategemea biashara na ukulima. Na watu wa Mlima Kenya, sisi huwa tunapiga kura ya purpose, not just for the sake of voting.
Was it Mount Kenya has been voting purposely, or it was about tribe? Okay, well, purpose. Tribe is as well purpose, right?
No, purposely.
Okay.
Na Mount Kenya ndio tupate rais wa kwanza ambaye ni Jomo Kenyatta, baba yake rais wa sasa, tulipata kupitia kwa familia ya Jaramogi. Wakati Jaramogi alisema, unajua ukumbuka Jaramogi alikuwa anapewa uongozi ya Kenya, lakini akasema, akaliambia mkoloni, kama umetoseka na umeona wa Kenya wamefika kiwango ya kujiongoza, release all or political prisoners na Kenyatta akuja akuwe president. Hivyo ndio tukapata rais wa kwanza kutokea wapi? Kwa Jaramogi. Tukakuja baadaye after 24 years ya Moi, mwanawe Raila Odinga, mwanawe Jaramogi ambaye ni Raila Amolo Odinga pia alikuja akaturudizia uongozi mara ya pili wakati wa Kibaki tosha. Unakumbuka kulingana na sheria ya katiba ya nchi, wakili anajua inasema if someone is incapacitated is not suitable for any public office. Lakini kwa sababu ya heshima ya Raila na vile wananchi tunaamini Raila, tulichagua Kibaki akiwa kwenye wheelbarrow. Mguu inasimama namna hii kama bunduki, singuwezi kwenda kusoto wala kulia. Kwa sababu tulikuwa tunaamini mtu ambaye anaungwa mkono na Raila na Kibaki mwenyewe pia alikuwa na capacity, walikuwa anaenda kuleta mabadiliko. So Ruto kuwa ndio amefanya kampeni karibu miaka 9 kule, lakini hana kitu ya kuofa Mount Kenya.
Is it?
Hana kitu ya kuofa Mount Kenya. Na mpaka wa sasa bado hajatoa manifesto.
I mean, he's been talking about this as, you know, late as yesterday, presenting so much so of his charters. I don't know how much of a manifesto you would want in the event that he walks, you know, speaks to different groups. Yes. And I mean, set to do this.
Out of 4 presidential candidates, wawili tu ndio wametoa manifesto, na mmoja ni Raila, mwingine ni Wanjakoya, na Wanjakoya amekopi 70% ya manifesto ya Raila. Hao wengine hawajatoa manifesto. So sisi tukiangalia basis on Raila's manifesto, tunaona inaangazia mambo ya empowerment of agriculture. Anataka kuhakikisha all land inafanywa kazi, because we have 53% of the Kenyan agricultural land ambaye haijafanywa kazi since 1963. Na hiyo ikifanywa kazi itatupatia chakula ya kutosha, ita create job opportunities, itafanya tuwe na both commercial and agricultural industries, italeta both commercial and agricultural tourist. Unanipata?
Right.
So hiyo inafungua nafasi za ajira. Then pia anasema atafanya kitu ambaye inaitwa value addition. Katika zile vitu tunalima, kutakuwa tunafanya value addition ambaye itakuwa inaleta manufaa katika nchi yetu. Katika manifesto yake anazungumzia mambo ya manufacturing. Anataka nchi irundi kuwa manufacturing country with a purchasing power. Na hiyo pia itatupatia quality and enough commodities, again ina create job opportunities, na ina increase tax collection. Unajua saa hizi tuko na millions graduate youth jobless. Na kama tuko na watu ambao nchi ambayo iko na 9 million youth jobless, hakuwezi kuwa na security.
You know, you will agree with me that it's one thing to promise, it's another to implement.
Yes.
And if there's a problem we've had as a country, it's on the question of implementation. They will have the best of manifestos, the best of promises. How realistic they are, people continue to question. And how they get to the question of implementation is also one thing that we are, you know, excited to get to understand. And I think that's what Kenyans are looking forward to. So we take a short break, and then we'll be coming back to Wakili to tell us whether, well, the charters that the DP has been presenting to different and special groups are not good enough to speak of what he presents to the people, and then finally to wrap it up with what it is will be in his manifesto. And we do not expect anything much that will be different from what he has been presented during this very charter. So we take that break and we'll come back to that.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. The next set of millionaires are farmers. As we know, agriculture has been and still is the backbone of our economy. As we traverse the different counties to meet different farmers, we ensure to get the story of how they started farming and even how they continue to penetrate the market and overcome the challenges.
Hapa, the reason why nilieka goose na si ducks. Goose, they are very easy to maintain.
A lot of farmers keep on calling, inquiring whether you're supposed to raise some seeds in the nursery or you're supposed to do them directly in the field.
The greenhouse helps us control the temperature because the temperature needs to be between 28 to 32 degrees.
Walk this journey with us every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. It's no secret, construction ain't cheap. But how do we make it affordable? Different individuals are finding ways of cutting down cost by use of pre-stressed slabs other than reinforced concrete, recycling plastics to make pavers.
The brick is stronger, it's cheaper, and it's lighter.
And recycling wastewater in your household.
What happens to my waste from the washroom, the solid waste? All that can break down.
Those are just but a few. Every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. we talk construction.
There's no alpha without an alpha. There's no
Edah, we also have Japheth as well as Wakili Phillip as we unpack what is happening in the country politically. And so Kenya Kwanza is set to present its manifesto Thursday, and we have seen the small questions of charters and the conversations that have been on as, you know, Deputy President William Ruto tries to entice different groups. And I mean, these are the very same groups that hugely speak of, you know, the population that we have in the country, the registered voters for that very matter. We have talked about the youth and how important they are, the women, how important they are. He has spoken to the women. He has spoken on what he needs to do on the question of education. He has spoken on what he seeks to do on the question of health. I mean, probably his manifesto will largely focus on these things that he speaks of. How he's going to make sure that there's a boost in the question of, you know, businesses. As he would say, the people of Mountain would want their businesses, you know, have a proper boost. In this very case, can we confidently say that he's not presented anything that would be worth enticing the people of the Mountain? Yet at this very moment, even before he started having the charters, he had already won that love from the Mountain.
Before I go into that, let me join issues with my brother Morocco and Madam Edah here. First of all, I'm really glad to hear that she's a youth and vying for a seat. I hope the people of Kiambu, is it? Kabete,
yeah.
Vote for her. I really do hope that they vote for her. I think that is the direction the country should be taking. On the popularity of Ruto, you know.
I want to challenge you, or
Yes.
I want to ask something on that before
Yes.
you get to that.
Yes.
Yes, the country should be taking that direction. We
Yes.
want to have as many youth, you know, representatives in Parliament,
Yes.
as many women representatives in Parliament. But
Yeah.
the previous one, or the previous House, that is the 12th Parliament,
Yes.
has had the largest number of representation by youth, the largest number of representation by women, historically speaking.
Yes.
But you ask the performance of that very House, people say, well, it performed dismally. You ask the performance of that very House, people are thinking, well, we did not see much coming from the youth that we entrusted, you know, with this token of leadership, as well as the women. So while this could be the direction that we need to take,
Yes.
what will it take for us to make sure that we get the right ones in there, those ones that will get in, gel in, be nurtured, and bring the best to the people?
First of all, the non-performance of the current August House is not down to the youth or the women in that particular parliament.
Of course, that is not down to them,
yes.
But again, we ask those that are there.
The cause of the failure by this particular parliament is the caliber of leaders that we elected into office. And this cuts across. It cuts across the political divide, it cuts across the regional, from where these people come from. It is about the electorate and how they pick their leaders. Right now, we have so many youths that are vying, so many competent youths, so many well-qualified. But then whom do we settle upon? You know, we settle upon the wrong people. And even then, we are arguing, we are saying so-and-so has no paper, so-and-so has integrity issues. These people are on the ballot. The IBC has failed in its work of vetting this particular group of people. But once they are on the ballot, whom then do we select as individuals? When we exercise our political will, whom do we elect as people? It is upon us to elect leaders who are credible, leaders who are competent, and I would say there are many youths who are credible, there are many youths who are competent, and in fact, to uproot this culture of corruption that's it's so deeply rooted, we need to do away with the old generation, which of course is the one which is deeply steeped into corruption. I'm sure she's not held any public office. I'm sure she's not stolen anyone's funds. I'm sure she has the requisite papers. But then whom are we focusing on? We are focusing on the crooks. It's the crooks going out there that attract the biggest crowds, and it's the crooks out there that will, at the end of the day, end up in office. And then whom do we blame? We blame the few good apples that are in parliament with the rotten apples for not having performed. So I think as a country, we have to look ourselves into the mirror and question the direction that we want this country to take.
All right.
Now back to Ruto and Uda and on the one side, and Raila and Martha Karua on the other. Ruto holds a steady 10% lead in all polls that have been conducted from whichever angle you look at it. And it will take a miracle for Azimio to whittle down that 10% lead in the next 42 days. For me, as I sit here, I can tell you authoritatively, unless a miracle happens, Ruto is our next president, and people need to start getting used to that. Much has been said about what Raila has done for Mount Kenya, for Jomo Kenyatta, for Mwai Kibaki. I would say Ruto wasn't there in 1963, and had he been there, he probably would have done what Jaramogi did, and he's done so. In 2002, he supported Kibaki to the hilt. In 2007, he supported Raila to the hilt. In 2013, 2017, he supported Uhuru. And in fact, if he hadn't supported Uhuru, Uhuru would not have been president. And the last 10 years, let's look at the last 10 years. You know, in 20 years, we look back and we will say that 2013, 2022 was the most definitive period in the history of this country. I can tell you, if you go all the way to Kakuma, that is up north, or if you go all the way to Mombasa or Mandera, you will find this government laying down fiber cables for internet connection. We have electricity, we have the roads. And I'm a big Ruto supporter, but then we differ when, the only point where we differ is when he says that this particular government hasn't delivered. It has delivered. And if I were him, I would take all the credit. I wouldn't be fighting this particular president. I would take all the credit because indeed a lot has been done. And he's part of that team, is the part of the group that laid down the plans, and is part of the team that has executed that plan. That is number two. Number three, today you look at Raila and Ruto, you look at the people supporting the both sides, and there is no difference. You cannot tell which side is dirtier than the other. Okay? All the people that we can accuse for all sorts of ills are in Azimio. All the people that, you know, in fact, Ruto walks around with new faces. Rigathi is new to most Kenyans. Ruto himself is I can call him a young Turk, and we cannot blame him for the ills of this particular country. And he brings with him new energy, brings with him new ideas. And that brings me to the question of the manifestos.
Right.
I've participated in some of these economic forums where charters have been generated. In particular, I've participated in West Pokot's economic forum. I'm one of the members of Kachapin's election strategy team.
Okay.
And we deliberated upon our charter. We went about the county looking for people who would make presentations on in the economic forum and in the preparation of West Pokot economic charter. And I can tell you this is the way that the country should be going, whereby we go back to the people and ask them, what is your problem? What opportunities do you have here? And how do you think we can harness this opportunity and solve your problems?
Right.
And we had all sorts of people from all walks of life coming up with solutions. We had chicken sellers coming up and telling us, you know, we send to Nairobi so many chickens on a daily basis. What can we do here to add value in order for us to generate more income? We had people from the coffee sector, from the dairy industry, the pastoralists, the miners, and they all came up. And if you listen to these people, they have great ideas. You know, this is where the rubber meets the road. Right. They know what they face each morning. You know, if you have been selling mahindi by the roadside every day, I'm sure you've asked, how can I improve my lot? What can I do? What do I need? And if at all a solution is needed, that is the person that we should go to.
Right.
And this ties in with a bottom-up economic model. And this is something that has been embraced throughout the world, only that it's not been effectively implemented. Right. And this is what Ruto is trying to do.
So how different do you suppose we're going to manage to implement this as we loop in?
Once these charters, yesterday, for example, the charter between UDA and the people of West Pokot was signed. And this charter will be incorporated into the country, to the UDA's manifesto.
Okay.
So it is the document that we will ask the implementation of. At the end of the day, at the end of 5 years, it is what we will use to hold Ruto accountable to.
Okay.
We will tell him, we told you we needed roads to this village. We will tell him we needed funds for the youth. We will tell him we needed this and that industry. Have you delivered or have you not?
But is it not the very same grounds that we keep questioning? What about the stadiums? What about this? What
but you see now the difference
laptops?
is, you know, you come and tell, and this is the difference between trickle-down economics and bottoms-up. Trickle-down, somebody is sitting somewhere in a corner office and imagines, oh, Philip needs a stadium somewhere in Kimarani. I mean, do I really need a stadium?
But is it not more or less the same thing, that money will come from the people to the national government and back to the people? And yes, let's allow Edah come in on that very note. Wakili says that the only way Ruto loses is if there's going to be a miracle. Perhaps to ask a miracle where maybe the election process will be interfered with. And if we are to look at what, then Japheth says here, is it genuine at all, or is it so hypocritical to argue that Ruto has not presented anything that would entice the people of the mountain so far? And I mean, from the very first time these conversations of, bottom-up started, it was about the mountain as well and what the mountain would get. And from the very onset, we would say that the coming in of Gachagua, first of all, is an entice aspect to the people of the mountain.
No, it is not.
Is it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I think we've seen Gachagua and Ruto work together from the very beginning. They are ideally the founders of UDA. So there's nothing new to that. There's no angle.
You will agree you will agree to this, that we have other able leaders, including Mudavadi himself, could have easily deputized Deputy President William Ruto. So but then again, because probably they tried to entice the mountain where the numbers are.
Yeah, maybe that's what they were after the Mount Kenya vote, which would be strategic anyway. But let me say this. We have to step back as a country and really figure out what we want, because this is the same story that we keep having every election year. It's a cycle. We sit down, we pretend to talk to people, we go around the country talking to people, telling them, tell us what your problem is, and elect us. As soon as you elect us, we're going to sort out your problems. And as soon as you elect these people, things get even worse. I remember in 2013, we had all these meetings. We had very nice conferences talking about our economy and how we were going to build up on it from where Kibaki left and ensure that we become a double-digit economy, and we have roads and we have all these things, all these nice things that ideally were meant to make life easier for us. And 10 years down the line, what do we have? Mounting debt, frustration. In fact, the conversation should move from the economy to social issues, because we are struggling with social issues. Alcohol consumption, teenage pregnancies, these are things that frustrate us indirectly, that our leaders shy away from. Because the moment you talk about an issue like alcohol, and you tell people that I would like to fight alcoholism, and I'll do this by ensuring that we ensure that we have more strict rules to deal with licensing and all issues pertaining, alcohol distribution and manufacturing. Leaders shy away because you want to remain politically correct. You don't want to touch that because you will be affecting people's businesses. But you're not looking at what that is doing to our people, to our children. So we are struggling with social issues. We are struggling with leaders who are trying to remain politically correct. We are struggling with a nation whereby everything is, only talk about numbers, we only talk about money, and we forget these issues, and they are more important.
Let's talk about Wajakoya briefly on that very note.
That's what I wanted to bring in.
Yes.
If you look at the papers today, they're saying that the UN is saying that because of so many countries, allowing bang farming and selling, more and more people have become addicted. The uptake is high, and there's a risk of, promoting drug abuse in our societies. So when Wajakoya says, for example, that we are going to farm bang, what is it for? Is it for selling to, who are we selling it to? What is the use of this bang? So instead of us having a wholesome conversation about it, we pick it and we make memes about it, we laugh about it, and we think it's exciting. And the youth, let me tell you, actually then everyone in Kenya is tired of these politicians promising and never delivering. And that is why Wajakoya with such ideas is exciting to the people, because this is something we've not heard about. We will continue to be told about a government where businesses will be given loans and all that. That will always come up, but such ideas don't come up. So when a presidential candidate comes with such crazy ideas, snake farming, we don't scrutinize it to see how is it going to be beneficial to our economy. Is this an export that can generate more money than coffee? Because we've been struggling with coffee too, and we know those are they're products that bring in more money as opposed to this, if you look at it critically. But it's no longer exciting. We want crazy ideas because we've been pushed to that place. So when you talk about economic forums, I like the idea, but we have Vision 2030. How far along have we come with it? We have the Big Four agenda. How far have we come with creating 2 million house units? Is it achievable? Has it been achieved? No. We have infrastructure in the Big Four. And we were talking about, I think, 10,000 kilometers of roads. I think much of that has been achieved. And now we are opening up the country because we have very many roads. But what has been the cost? What has been the price that we've paid for these things? Until we can get to a point where we are saying we have targets and deliverables, and we know for sure that we will hold you accountable to deliver. And if you don't deliver, this is what is going to happen to you or to us, then we'll forever keep singing these nice stories, but it will never really be achieved.
And perhaps that's why I was asking Japheth, why the excitement about what Baba is presenting? Probably same monkey, those people who've been there. We would want to say that, well, during the Grand Coalition government, at least we witnessed some differences, and maybe we'd argue that his contribution was there largely. But to be honest, do we get excited when she speaks of what we are going to do in terms of getting ourselves to the level of emancipation on matters, economy, yet the very papers today dictate or speak of, a government that is running on empty. It's been a question of borrowing. 2.5 billion is being borrowed daily. Interestingly, President Uhuru Kenyatta says the 2 billion is stolen daily. The mathematics around the running of this government is one thing that really cannot get us excited. Why would you be happy that, these manifestos are being presented after all? They might not be able to implement them.
Good. Number one, we are in advanced and lasting liberation in terms of economy.
Why do you equate it to be the last one?
In terms of economy and sufficient leadership.
Okay.
The tragedy that we have as a country is to lack sufficient leadership. Leadership ambayo inatupatia morals and values of the country. As our taxpayers, we shouldn't be feeling value of being paid tax. Na hiyo ndio kitu Raila anataka kurudisha. Number one, anataka kurudisha kwa njia ya kuhakikisha amepambana na ufisadi. Although nchi yetu tumeenda ligi nyingine kale kubwa kuliko ufisadi, tuko katika looting. Hiyo unasikia
wizi kabisa wa kibabavu.
2 bilioni inapotea kila siku. Unajua do you know what billion is? Ukisema kila siku unatumia 12,500. Itakuchukua 216 years to be bankrupt. Lakini unasikia kama hizo 2 bilioni zinapotea.
Na 2 bilioni tunakopa kila siku.
Na 2.5 bilioni tunakopa kila siku. Although kukopa sio sinda, ni hizo pesa hiyo ndani tumechukua haijaegezwa, haijakuwa invested mali inaweza kujitoa na itupatie service na itupatie value. Kitu ambayo inaitwa economy, kama economy inangiro ufai kuambiwa, unafaa kufili.
It has to be seen.
Yes.
And that is what the people of Kenya are not saying today.
Sasa,
Japheth, allow us to take a quick break and then we'll come back to you. All right.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. The next set of millionaires are farmers. As we know, agriculture has been and still is the backbone of our economy. As we traverse the different counties to meet different farmers, we ensure to get the story of how they started farming and even how they continue to penetrate the market and overcome the challenges.
Hapa, the reason why nilieka goose na si ducks. Goose, they are very easy to maintain.
A lot of farmers keep on calling, inquiring whether you're supposed to raise some seeds in the nursery or you're supposed to do them directly in the field.
The greenhouse helps us control the temperature because the temperature needs to be between 28 to 32 degrees.
Walk this journey with us every Sunday at 6.
All right, welcome back to the broadcast, and still expounding on what is happening in the country politically. It is this very moment that we make that crucial decision as to who then takes us to the next dispensation. And we have Japheth Morocco. We also have Philip Ambole, Wakili, as well as Edah, who's here with us, Member of Parliament candidate of Kabete. And we unpack what is happening right here in the country politically. So, Japheth, we had to take a short break on your very...
Yes. Yeah, nilikuwa nasema mambo ya economy, lazima tuwe na account of government yenye Raila anataka kuleta. Rafiki yangu alikuwa anazungumzia hapa mambo ya economy, alikuwa anazungumzia mambo ya bottom up economy, ambapo kwa bando sielewi vizuri, labda atuelezee, but in Kenya the best ever model economy is devolution. Okay. Na mambo ya economy ukiangalia iko addressed vizuri katika manifesto ya Raila. Ameaddress mambo ya manufacturing ambayo ina boost economy, na tunajua Raila is the only presidential candidate in Kenya who has a local and international political goodwill, ambapo kuwa inaaminika na foreign investors, ambapo kuwa inaaminika na donors. Na kwa mfano unajua sasa ile ndeni Kenya iko nayo ni kubwa zaidi, tumefika menopause, hatuwezi kuomba ndeni tena. Na najua Raila atakuwa na kibarua kingumu sana kufix economy, kwa sababu atakuwa analipa hii mambo ya den. Although kulingana na uaminifu wake, akiinua zimu hivi tu kwa rafiki yake pale ngambo, unapata $10 billion inaingia Central Bank, na hiyo sio ndeni, ni grant tu. Na ndugu yangu hapa amesema Kenya Kwisha candidate anaongoza. Nakubaliana yeye anaongoza kwa ufisadi, anaongoza kwa all man of impunity. Manifesto ambao unasema mnaenda kutoa on Thursday, I hope amwendi kukopi manifesto ya baba. Kwa sababu already mtu amekuwa kwa serikali almost 10 good years, afai kuwa anapeana ahadi, anafaa kusema nimefanya ABCD. Umeuliza tutawaamini vipi, ama umesema manifesto ni mzuri ya Raila, lakini tutaamini vipi? Ningetaka tuangalia watu na rekodi. Raila Odinga alisema Kenya itakuwa na multi-party, imekuwa ama haijakuwa? Amesema tutakuwa na katiba mpya, imekuwa ama haijakuwa? During a grand coalition government, alisema tutakuwa na free and compulsory primary education, ilikuwa ama haijakuwa? He is the father of devolution, na ndio sababu anataka kuja pale I implement to the fullest na I sustain, na pia afungue barabara ili hii nchi iwe kwa pamoja. I strengthen ile umoja ameleta kupitia handshake between yeye na Uhuru Kenyatta, ndio tuweze kuwa na nchi ambayo iko pamoja, nchi ambayo iko na afya, na nchi ambayo iko na umoja, tuwe tunaongea pamoja kama wa Kenya. Katika uongozi ya Raila hakutakuwa na private health care, na hakutakuwa na private education. Education itakuwa ni public. Kwa mfano kama wewe ni waziri wa education ama mfanyikazi wa education, hautapewa hiyo kazi kwa serikali ya Raila kama watoto wako wasome public school. Kama wewe ni
is that not a little bit of a gag of the question of democracy?
No.
And I mean, how much of public schools do we have around that could carry these faces that we speak of? And what happens to the private?
No, wasa nikwambie, Raila anaenda ku streamline education sector and health sector. Kuna wakati Professor Peter Anyang' alikuwa Minister of Medical Services na Honorable Edah Wambui Minister of Health during the coalition government. Mmoja alipata prostate cancer, mwingine akapata breast cancer. Walienda kutibiwa wapi? Walienda kutibiwa ngambo. Kwa nini hawakutibiwa katika health institutions ambazo wanasimamia hapa za public?
But just how capable are we? How many patients are we losing today because they're not able to access
And then again, these were people these were people in the coalition government.
Ngoja nikumalize. Nasema hivi, ili hao watu waweze kustreamline hiyo health sector.
It has to be mandatory that they use that.
Yes.
They'll make the best of it.
Yes, kama ni gavana amegonjeka anaenda hospitali katika kaunti yake, hakuna kuruhusiwa kwenda kaunti nyingine, hakuna kuruhusiwa kwenda national government hospital ama nje.
How much of a plus will that be? And well, we come to you, Wakili, and just marrying your argument as you pick it up from him, we also look at this question of the projections that have been made on the Daily Nation this morning as pertaining to just where we are. It's a bad state in the country, or so to speak. State of borrowing about 2.5 billion daily, they say, and it speaks of debts and dents in the country. At the end of April this year, Kenya's public debt stood at 8.47 trillion shillings, and that is a shillings of 773.75 billion, increase from about 7.69 trillion in June 2021. This is data that comes from Treasury. And we can speak so much so about the numbers, about the question of accountability, about the Jubilee government, but it is going. But then again, we have raised the debt ceiling to 10 trillion. The 12th Parliament left the office having done that. I mean, just how much of a hassle will it be for the next government as they take up the mantle? And if the situation is as ugly as Deputy President William Ruto would say, as the Right Honourable Raila Odinga would say, why would they want to inherit such a government?
That is a good question. I mean, why would anyone want to take over this burden? It tells you power is sweet, and it tells you they know how they are individually going to gain. To me, it's really not about Kenyans. We are not that gullible. We know that leadership in Kenya has been reduced to self-aggrandizement, people promoting their own affairs, and it can be seen from both in Azimio and in this other side. Though I support UDA because it has new faces, and I'm hoping that it's not business as usual. We are borrowing, as per this report, we are borrowing 2.5 billion daily, and we are using 2.4 to be to service the loans that we do have. That means that we are only left with 100 million to work with. And I don't think this is going to stop anytime soon. We still have a debt of 8.47 trillion. But I think from whichever side you look at it, whether you're in UDA or in Azimio, I think we have to agree one thing, and that is that, unless as Kenyans we are able to generate income, unless we are able to pay taxes, unless we are able to support our own spending, the only resort we have is to borrowing. Okay? Less than 20% of Kenyans pay direct taxes. Me and you pay income taxes. 80% of us don't pay income taxes. They pay indirect taxes, the like of excise and VAT. And these are the people who go to the polls and have a say on how the money that me and you and the rest of the panelists here have contributed should be used. And that is why we see the kind of leadership we have, and accountable. Because, if I'm not paying tax, then I don't care about the accountability of how that tax is spent. How do we grow the tax base? We need to have more people employed. We need to have more people productive. And that speaks to the economy. We need to have Kenyans productive. And this is what I'm looking for when I read the manifestos. How are you going to empower the ordinary Kenyan? How are you going to empower that man who's roasting maize by the roadside to grow into a kiosk and eventually probably even into a supermarket? How are you going to empower Mama Pima so that she can pay taxes? How are you going to see to it that we bake a bigger national cake, which is then shared, and from which we can then get taxes to clear this loan and to sustain ourselves? But if the current situation is going to continue, where we borrow and then we loot the money before it even comes into the country, then the only way this country will survive is through more borrowing. We will have to raise the debt ceiling again and again. Unfortunately.
Perhaps to loop in Edah, sorry Wakili, let me take it from you and ask Edah this. That devolution could not have guaranteed us this aspect of making sure that people down there at the grassroots are empowered if we got it right?
We have a very bad habit of having a very big appetite for public funds. Even an ordinary stuff somewhere. He's just looking for a way to. And it's a problem that we all have.
It's a moral problem.
Ukienda mahali, your goal is to nikule kidogo, nifanye kazi, nikule kidogo, nauma kidogo here and there. We are a society that likes kickbacks. To do something, you have to get money fast. So we have all failed collectively. And devolution was a good concept. It was just meant to deal with poverty at grassroots levels, which means you bring the service down to the very, to the very common mwananchi huko chini. But in the process, you have county chiefs who are given money, and instead of utilizing this money, look at someone like Waititu. He's someone who came, he stole, he ate with his family, wife, everyone. They just went there, took all the money, left. He's not accounted for it. He's not paid it back. In fact, he even dared to come back and say, elect me again, I finish what I started. So it's...
Just if I may just it is not only Waititu.
It
is because Waititu was in UDA.
Okay.
If he was in Azimio...
But was he really in UDA originally?
Forget about a party right now. Let's just discuss Samburu. Samburu, the governor is not in UDA. Did you see what he's done? He stole money, he's bought houses in Karen. If you go to Samburu, people there are dying of, hunger.
But he's not been impeached.
He's not been impeached because he's been able to deal with it at that level of compromising the MCA so that they do not impeach you. So it is not an issue to do with parties. And you said that they are spread across. They're in Azimio, they're in Kenya Kwanza, all of them. So what is happening is that when you have such public servants, but even EACC is not
EACC genuinely in the first place. We actually saw a tough talking to Alib the other day, and for a
who
moment
are they prosecuted? Who has paid back? So all these institutions first are toothless, and then number two, we have courts that I don't want to get into that, but we know that the courts delay these processes. Result, that is where we have these people just keep coming back and they are elected, re-elected, because nobody gets prosecuted. So at the end of the day, and that is why the president asked, munataka nifanye nini? Because the president will not arrest and prosecute. You will be arrested, maybe ACC can recommend that they freeze your assets, you're taken to court, the court will give you bail and say that you return again and again. So it's an issue, it's a problem that we have. If you come to this borrowing, the conversation again needs to move from how do we generate more income to supplement our budget and stop borrowing, because we spend what we do not have. We borrow to spend, which is disastrous. If we should borrow, it should be to invest, and then invest in viable projects that are going to give us returns on that investment. And then we are able to pay back and grow ourselves, grow our economy. But for as long as we have these many big projects that maybe to get returns, it will be 5 to 10 years down the line, we'll continue to borrow and spend. But the money borrowed, a lot of it, a huge chunk of that money goes to people's pockets. Look at the dams. Look at the money borrowed for Galana Kulalu. Look at all these big projects where money was borrowed to invest in. We don't see anything. We don't have the dams, and we also don't have the money. So where is the money? It only means that money ended up in people's pockets. So devolution has failed to, I think to some extent we've realized some results, some good results, some fruits of devolution, but not the maximum capacity, because this concept has a lot of potential to boost the economy, to help people address poverty.
And therefore it would be wise for us to continue with devolution?
It has to, because we just can't keep jumping ship. Right. You have to take something, finish what you started, so that we can address these challenges. By the way, there are things we can deal with.
All right, Japheth.
Ile accident tuko nayo kwa devolution, wale watu ambao walikuwa na idea ya devolution, like Raila Amolo Odinga, who has been engineering and championing for the devolution as a father of devolution, hakupata nafasi ya kuongoza kuja kuimplement. Ilikuja devolution ilijipata katika mikono ya wale watu ambao walikuwa wanapinga constitution. Unajua NDP alipinga constitution 2010 na hiyo constitution ilikuwa na devolution. ndio unaona wakati wameingia kwa power alikuwa wana frustrate devolution. Pesa ya devolution after budget inakuja kama tunabakiza mwezi moja ama mbili mwaka ya serikali iize, na pesa ikikuja kama inabaki muda kidogo inarudi katika treasury. Kwa hivyo
remember that the DP is manning this government with President Uhuru Kenyatta. Ukumbuke DP ana money government pamoja na President Uhuru
Kenyatta. Yes, wao hawakuwa na idea ya devolution.
Okay.
So walikuwa na frustrate. Unajua devolution it is not only money. Kuna sectors mingi ziko devolved like agriculture, like healthy, like infrastructure on schools like high schools and primary schools. Hizo ziko katika devolved unit.
The health sector gurus will tell you that it was the worst mistake to devolve the health sector. What do you say about that?
No, ilikuwa ni muhimu kudevolve. Unajua kila kitu iko katika counties, iko katika mashinani. So ilikuwa ni muhimu sana kudevolve. Na ndio unaona sasa Mungu akitujalia baba aingie pale ataimplement vizuri, kwa sababu ndio mwenye hiyo idea. Atahakikisha baba anataka kutuma shughuli zote mazinani na pesa ifuate. That's why unaona anataka tutoke from 15% to 35%. Kwa sababu ile 15% iko kwa sasa, saa zingine ni isia kwa mishahara, hakuna pesa ya maendeleo. But tukiongeza hiyo ifike 35 or 40%, kulingana na mpangilio wa baba katika manifesto yake, ama katika ile BBI, kutakuwa na pesa ya kufanya maendeleo na ya kulipa mishahara. So watu watakuwa ambise pale, hata itakuwa na maana ya kuja Nairobi, kwa sababu wanaenda utakuwa ukombise kwenu mashinani, una develop kwenu.
Have you tried conducting business with any county?
No.
You have not tried.
No,
the few who have,
I have.
You have. And
I have.
How is the situation? How is the
I'm
experience?
telling you, people tell you before, and before we pay you, we're taking half of that money.
Yeah.
And on that day they pay you, they'll be in the office to get that half
of the money.
Kickbacks. That is the kind of culture that we do have. And before I hand it back to him, it is the culture of selective justice that has hurt the fight against corruption. If you look the past 5 years, who are the people who've been corrupted? Who've been charged in court for corruption? It is the people who do not support the current regime.
Okay.
Are they the only corrupt fellows in this country? Yeah. I'll tell you, 90% of public servants who are accounting officers, who are in charge of public funds, are corrupt. And if ESCC were to do its job, this 90% should be in court. But then before you are taken to court, the question you are asked is, do you support UDA or do you support Azimio?
Is it? Okay.
If you support UDA, of course we know that you will end up in court.
Is it?
And I can tell you for a fact that the people who support Ruto are the only clean people in this country. The rest are hiding under Azimio.
Mheshimiwa wakili, what right, yes.
Ile makosa tunaweza fanya kama inchi ni kukosa kuchagua Raila Kalua ticket, which is a liberation ticket. Na watu wa UDA wamefika ideologies in bankruptcy and political menopause. Hakuna kitu wanaweza kuofa. In fact, sisi kama watu wa Mlima Kenya tuko na wasiwasi na candidate yao, kwa sababu kuna mahali alinukuliwa akiambia jamii fulani, nyinyi hamuna sinda ile sisi tuko naye na Wakikuyu. Hamuna ile sinda sisi tuko naye na Wakikuyu. Lakini tumesema wasa kwanza tuchukue serikali. Ndio tundili na hiyo sinda. Hiyo inatutia kiwewe kubwa zaidi. History ya candidate wa Kenya kuisha. Tunajua wakati Raila alikuwa ana champion kuleta Mutipate na akina Matiba, yeye alikuwa waikei 92 akipinga. Wakati hii katiba ambayo imeleta mambo mzuri alipinga. Hii juzi imekuja mambo ya BBI ambaye inataka kuleta inclusivity, ina increase pesa mazinani na inataka kuongeza uongozi ya wabunge na madiwani kuja kwa watu. Amepinga. Kumaanisha yeye ataki inchi mazuri. Ni mtu anajitakia yeye peke yake. Na nataka nikuambie hivi, Raila Odinga is a full religion movement. Yeye mwenyewe ndio popo hiyo ndini. Deputy yake ni cardinal. Kalonzo ni archbishop.
Okay.
Governors hawa ni mabishops. Senators na wabunge ni mapastors. MCAs ni choir members. na wananchi ni followers.
All right. Well, such is politics. You expected to have such moments, and I think it's what makes it beautiful.
It is important to debunk one myth, and that is that...
what is the truth meter, first of all, of sanity, integrity, people being clean? When you say that this side of Kenya Kwanza is totally clean, one would want to ask. I mean,
it is because of the selective justice that we can see being applied in this country.
Okay.
If you do not support the president, then tomorrow you'll be in court.
Let's overlook that for a moment. Wakili, you are a lawyer.
Yes.
Let's overlook that for a moment and say, well, just on a normal ground.
Yes.
If Sudi were presented to you, if Waitito was presented to you, if Rigathi Gachagua was presented to you, if the likes of Anwar Guru were presented to you, and you were to make a judgment on what has played out, forget about getting to the actual bit of the judgment, which the courts have not done today. How would you analyze their cases to a point of saying that perhaps these people are clean?
Let's take Waiguru, for instance. Waiguru was impeached, but she was alipewa mwosho mmoja pale Senate.
Capitol Hill.
Yes. Who did it? It is Azimio, isn't it? And then after she...
So you agree that she's corrupt?
No, I'm not agreeing that she's corrupt. But immediately she jumped ship to UDA. What happened again?
She is walking scot-free today, Wakili.
She was charged again.
Yes, she was.
Allegations again arose from the same government, alleging that she's corrupt. I can tell you the only reason Rigathi is in court today is because he supports the DP.
Is it?
He was taken to court before.
This happened even before, and the proceedings were on,
Was it in the first term or in the second term? Was it before the president fell out with the DP or after the DP?
But the questions that are being presented on the table, Wakili, are they not
Let me
valid?
tell you, of the 47 governors, I can tell you more than half are worse than Waititu.
Okay.
But it only depends whether you support UDA or you support Azimio.
Let's
go to Nyanza, for instance, and look at the caliber of governors there, and let's see what devolution has done for them. Some parts of these countries have really advanced over the last 10 years. You go to some counties in Nyanza and Siaya, for example, where the Honorable Prime Minister hails from, his governors performed dismally. The doctors there are ever on strike. Why? Because of grand corruption. Let's go to Homa Bay, where he's facing a revolt, where Kidero is now running and is highly likely to emerge as a victor. Why are people so disgruntled?
You need to understand that the right of Raila Odinga is not part of government, and that therefore, why would they want to protect those ones that support him?
This is what I would say.
Let's allow Edah come in.
The problem is when we get to this point in time, we start making excuses for the people that we support or where we want to eat from. And that is why we are deplorable as a country. We are performing poorly because we keep making excuses for people. If I join a party, a political party, I'm joining that party because I identify with the ideologies of that party. And if someone sitting next to me in that party is corrupt, I should not make excuses for them. I'll remain in the party, but I say that to clean up this house, you have to start by cleaning out these people who taint the image of the party. Now, UDA as a party is a strong party. That's not in question. What came first? You loot, you run to a political party to say that you are being hunted. You fail to pay taxes, you fail to agree with the government, or you enter into an agreement with government, maybe it does not work out well for you, you run to a party to say that you're being hunted by the party, just because it looks like the opposition party. And I think even Honorable Ruto himself has to draw the line and start focusing on looking at the house internally, to see and note that, and it also applies to Azimio, that if somebody is corrupt and they join the party, you should not join that fight with them against their corruption cases. Let everybody carry their own cross. And that includes even the people in Azimio. And let me tell you something. It is only a matter of time before these people, it is 5 years down the line, and they realign and form the same people just realign themselves and form parties. So they keep moving around while we are down here making excuses for them, today those who are not agreeing will be agreeing in the next election, and they'll join forces and tell us, wale ni wabaya, sisi ni wazuri, sisi ni wasafi kama pamba, wale ni wabaya. So I keep asking mwananchi, why don't you maneuver like these politicians that today they are not eating together, but tomorrow they'll be friends and fighting together, while you'll be left now, you know, with the egg on your face.
That is how the fight on corruption has been lost. You know, Kenyans are tired. Kenyans don't even want to hear anything to do with who is corrupt and who is not corrupt.
Ndugu, hapo unasema kwa mambo ya Siaya, ati Gavana Rasanga hajafanya kitu, Gavana Sipirian hajafanya kitu.
Nyong'o at least has been celebrated.
Unasema
why are these people in court?
No, don't make excuses for them. They have not performed. Given the money that they have been.
I'm not making excuses. Kuna mahali nataka kurekebisha na kuambia sinda ya devolution as not only Siaya or Homa Bay. Ile kitu imefanyika ni frustrations kwa sababu ya hii governing policy ya sahi walikuwa wataki devolution. Walikuwa wanataka pesa.
So why is it that Kakamega is being why is it that Makueni appears like this performed Kisumu?
Ngoja nimalize. Enda uangalie vile counties zilikuwa zinapewa pesa. Nimekuambia kuna some counties zilikuwa isolated, walikuwa wanapewa pesa late. Sasa ikikuja hakuna ile wakati ya kufanya kazi pesa zinarudi. Lakini kwa sababu Mungu anatujalia father of devolution anaenda kuwa president. Gilande Siwanga anaenda kuwa gavana ya Homa Bay na atafix hiyo. Orengo anaenda kuwa gavana ya Siaya. Atafix hiyo.
Mambo imekuwa ngumu sana for Orengo. I hope you know that it's not easy on ground.
It is not easy.
Just because he's supporting of all this. Let's take a short break, Wakili. A very short one, and then we come back.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
Well, do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. The next set of millionaires are farmers. As we know, agriculture has been and still is the backbone of our economy. As we traverse the different counties to meet different farmers, we ensure to get the story of how they started farming and even how they continue to penetrate the market and overcome the challenges.
Hapa, the reason why niliweka goose na si ducks. Goose, they are very easy to maintain.
A lot of farmers keep on calling, inquiring whether you're supposed to raise some seeds in the nursery or you're supposed to do them directly in the field.
The greenhouse helps us control the temperature because the temperature needs to be between 28 to 32 degrees.
Walk this journey with us every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. It's no secret, construction ain't cheap. But how do we make it affordable? Different individuals are finding ways of cutting down cost by use of pre-stressed slabs other than reinforced concrete, recycling plastics to make pavers.
This question of whether the IEBC should just give us a digital registration or digital register as opposed to what these other candidates would wish for, that we have, a physical register, a printed register for that moment. Is this a way to go, or perhaps these leaders are now a little bit worried that they might not be able to get a chance to interfere with the register at that very moment?
For me, I think it is because this suggestion comes in a bit late.
Okay.
It's come 50 days into the election. I mean, why this late? We've had the last 5 years to make all these changes, make recommendations.
You know that in politics,
do
that
test
one
runs.
day.
But you see, now that is where everything hinges on politics.
Okay.
You know how Kenyans are. They love their politics. And any slight thing goes wrong, then this country will go down to the dogs. We saw what happened in 2007. We saw what happened in 2017. And we don't want to find ourselves there. Personally, I do support the use of physical registers. The IBC says that 11,000 polling stations has no connectivity to internet. The first time we used the electronic system was in 2017, and we saw the experience. There are so many people who are not on the KIEMS kit and had to be identified through the use of the physical register. Now, you go there with only your ID, and your biometrics are not on the system. How do the agents confirm that indeed yes, that we are dealing with the right person, unless that name can be counter-checked against the register? Again, the register needs to be cancelled off. At the end of the day, it is a complementary document. It will tell us how many people walked into that polling station. It will also see to it that even those who have not been captured for one reason or another are given an opportunity to vote. And if anything, I mean, what harm? IBC says that it's been used to steal election. I mean, at some point, we were 100% manual. Does it mean that our elections were so shambolic that we cannot vouch for them?
Right.
I do support the use, only that I have a trust deficit in Chebukati's team.
All right, and we'll come to that on the question of the performance of the IEBC so far and how much the people of Kenya can, bank on the IEBC. Here we are, Edah. We are looking at possible scenario where the presidential candidates then will get to meet the IEBC today. It is hugely about them, and that we have to accept. And so they go there to represent those ones that are in the lower cadres of leadership. For instance, members of parliament, they go there to speak to the IEBC on behalf of you people who would wish to seek the mandate of Kenyans or to seek the mandate to serve the people of Kenya. What would be your expectation in terms of having those, the irreducible minimums that they have presented to the IEBC addressed?
First of all, I think they're just looking out for themselves, because we have a big number of candidates who are running as independent candidates like myself. So in our case, who is looking out for us?
Okay.
Yeah. So these people will be representing themselves and, of course, maybe their political parties, but not everyone entirely. Well, given that the first 2017 presidential election was nullified, they have to be extra careful this time, and that's why they've hired experts, to look into the nitty-gritties to ensure that this time round they meet all the requirements and they ensure that they conduct the elections or manage the elections properly, to avoid a scenario where you're taken to court to answer to technicalities that you could have otherwise avoided. Also, we have had problems with the elections previously. We've had a lot of claims of rigging, and so every presidential candidate is out to ensure that they deal with the issue of the possibility of rigging of the election. So they're trying to tie the loose ends. Like he says, it's a bit too late because we're talking about logistics planning, which IEBC does throughout. As soon as they're done with this election, they start preparing for the next election.
Yeah.
So this is something they should have already dealt with, not this late. So, of course, the IEBC has to tell candidates what they want to hear. but it's not really, I don't think they are very well prepared in that area, because if you're saying that there are stations that do not have internet connectivity, and here you're saying that you want to do away with the manual register, then it raises questions of what then is going to happen. Will you ensure that the internet is connected before? I mean, it's a lot to take in. So I think my expectation would be, of course, having a dialogue, having that conversation with the IBC is important, so that nobody feels as if the other is being favored by IBC. But given our history, I don't think much is going to change. We are still going to have some of the challenges that we've had in the previous election. Although I have to give credit to IBC, because they have tried to clean, for example, they've cleaned up the register, which I think is good. They've done away with voters that are not eligible anymore, maybe dead people or number IDs that had been duplicated and so on, which means that they are trying to show us that they want to apply a bit of transparency. So you have to give credit where it's due. And then again, this time round, we don't have agents being hired on contract. They are permanent employees of IEBC, which I think is going to deal with the issue of tampering with agents and voter bravery. So I think that's pretty much what I think.
Perhaps the direction that we should take in future, if this one we do not set proper.
Kitu naweza sema kwa IEBC, kwanza nimesikia candidate wa Kenya Kwisha akilia ati 1 million votes zake zimetolewa. Nataka kumjulisha ile 1 million vote ambazo zimetolewa sio ni za wale watu ambao walikuwa wamekufa. Wale ambao walikuwa wanafufuka, wanakuja wanapiga kura, wanajazi upande yake, sasa ndio wametolewa. Kitu ya pili naweza sema IEBC wanafaa wafanye kazi kulingana na mujibu wa sheria, na in case inafaa turuhusu in case IEBC wamesaidia mtu kuiba kura ama wameiba kura na wapelekwe kotini wapatikane na hatia, inafaa mwenye amehusika mali yake yote isikwe na serikali irundi katika akaunti za serikali na aletwe huru pagi tumuue na mawe kama wa Kenya, kwa sababu hakuna makosa kubwa kama kuibia mtu kura ambaye hakushinda, unamnyima nafasi ule ambaye amechaguliwa na wananchi. Kwa maana mwananchi akikuchagua anakuchagua muongoze, lakini ule mwingine ameletawa analazimizwa.
Well, we would want to say that this moment of election, it's important that we preach peace. You know, in as much as we are disgruntled of the fact that we've not handled the elections well previously.
Unajua ile kitu ambayo inaleta amani ni haki. You can't police speech, just police justice. Justice ikipatikana, amani ni 100%. Na kama hakuna justice, pia vita ni 100%. So Kenya peke yake ndio unasikia wizi wa kura na wizi mpaka wa mitihani. Unasikia mtu anaiba mtihani, anaenda anapewa degree kama daktari kwenda kudili na maisha ya watu, mwingine ni engineer anaenda kujenga nyumba ambayo inabomoka. Makosa kama haya inafaa wananchi turuhusiwe hiyo mtu tumue na mawe.
Wacha tuseme maoni yako sio. They in no way we put a disclaimer on that.
That the justice system has failed completely. Which then means that what do we work on? Do we work on our justice system to work, or do we resort to such, you know,
angles of options? Wajakoya would say in the question of corruption, we're almost getting there.
Yeah, we're almost getting there, because you can see it's a narrative that is gaining traction over time, because of our courts are taking such a lengthy period of time. And then at the end of the day, the case collapses. We can see so many corruption cases collapsing. Yes.
So, hii complaint ya watu wa Kenya Kwisha, hiyo ni lugha ya watu ambao wanaenda kwa opposition. As ODM, as COND, as NASA.
You've been there before, you know how it feels there.
So
you know how you used to talk.
Wao wamerudi mahali tulikuwa.
Kwa hivyo mnajua ya kwamba wakati mwingine the arguments and these litigations are baseless.
Wanaseti
tu grounds ya kureject in your elections.
Right.
Yeah, okay, well,
yes, speaking from experience, and I mean, we can only take his word for that. Yes.
Like I said when we started, UDA holds a 10% lead, an assailable lead. You know, looking at it from all angles, all opinion polls, even by Azimio itself, their polls show that UDA holds a 10% lead. The only way they can win is if there is massive rigging.
Yeah.
No. That is the only that is the only way they can win.
Why do you suppose IBC is not set to guarantee us, a free and fair process, to man the process, that there would not be possibilities of
kama wanaongoza different ya 10%, mbona wako na wasiwasi sasa kusema kura itaibiwa?
Ni kuchunga kura,
kuchunga kura ni kudeclare ya kwamba plans za kuiba zipo?
No, we haven't said that plans are afoot for rigging, but we are saying that IBC needs to show the country that what happened in 2017 will not happen in 2022. And we are vigilant. When 1 million voters were transferred, we raised the red flag. We didn't say that these people have been improperly transferred. We asked why, and we asked for the data on the same.
For a moment, that was questioned, Wakili, because people were like, how did Deputy President William Ruto get these numbers if really, again, he's not a friend of the IBC? That's...
At one point, Raila boasted, and his supporters would boast that he has an intelligence system similar to that of the government.
Yes,
we want to tell Azimio that Ruto has similar machinery in place.
So what kind of country are we running?
We are not worried. What we are telling IBC
for Raila
today, when Ruto meets with Chebukati today, he has only one question, and that is that he needs guarantee from Chebukati that he is ready.
Okay.
We don't, these last minute changes are giving us...
What guarantee will they get from Chebukati that he's ready when you know very well that he presented some of his proposals to Parliament that were rejected? He has asked for more funding. This was rejected. Why would we believe?
These IBC officers immediately after election have no work for 5 years. Then these people wake up 3 months to election. Rush to Parliament with bills. You want them passed. You tell us you want to do away with the physical register. You haven't tested the electronic biometric system. You haven't done dry runs at the polling stations. Is that giving country confidence that you are ready? Are you telling the country that you are prepared?
Wakili.
Yes.
Ruto ni Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya.
Technically.
Ni bound and beneficiary of impunity in this country.
You cannot push you cannot take all the files from somebody's office and tell him you're not working.
He is a computer generated leader in this country. Na umesikia mara mingi akisema hakuna deep state, hakuna system, hawezi ibua kura, mara anakuja tena anasema anataka kuibua kura. Hizo ni lugha za wale mtu ambaye anaenda kwa opposition. Hizo ni kicks of dying horns.
Could he be knowing the capability of the president?
Yes.
Because they were elected together in 2013.
Yes.
And now he says it's about the question of the state. Does it tell us somehow that again then the state had a hand?
Unajua kwa Ruto mali serikali imefanya kazi alikuwa. Mali serikali imefeli hakuwa. Sisi kama NASA kama Azimio la Umoja wa Kenya Coalition atuzungumzie kama candidate yetu atazinda. Kuzinda Raila asasinda mara 3. Kitu tunazungumzia ni kuwa hand over power.
How many cabinet meetings does the president have in his second term?
Okay.
Only 1 or 2.
Not to the number that was expected.
What is the reason? It is because he wanted to push Ruto out of the government. They have tried to frustrate the man so much. You go into the office, you take all his portfolios have been moved.
Why?
Okay. Yes.
Because they want to cripple him and cripple
how powerful is he? Why would you want to cripple someone who was instrumental in you winning, in your winning? What really happened somewhere?
Because somebody somewhere is desperate to take all the credit. Okay? He realized at some point that he was being overshadowed by his so-called deputy.
Who did what? Who
in fact was doing much of the work. If you remember, in the first term, Ruto was all over the place.
Well,
he was coordinating the ministries. He was going around the country. And that is why so far the ground is so receptive of him. Ruto is as powerful today as Raila was in 2017. He's as powerful today as Uhuru is. Why? Because Kenyans recognize that this is a hardworking, well-intentioned politician. And he's delivered. He's been talking about devolution. yes, Raila, I will give Raila credit for drawing up the new constitution, but who implemented it? Did he implement it?
Implemented the band.
Well, at least we have done. The reason why we are appreciating devolution and saying that
devolution taken hold or not?
It has.
It has. And so much fund. In fact, much of the borrowing is because of devolution. We've had to borrow so much because so much has to go to each and every county level. But then there is so much corruption. If these governors were working the way they're supposed to do, if they were stealing half what they were stealing and leaving the rest to the public, I can tell you Kenya would be way ahead.
Right. And let's allow Edah come in. Let's allow Edah come in.
Still way ahead of most countries in the region.
Make it less. Devolution haijakuwa implemented na ndio sababu tunataka Raila aende pale implement. Wakati wangeandikwa lesson, Raila alileta idea ya silamu upgrading in Nairobi na akaleta investor ambaye ilikuwa ni grant German government na UN Habitat wakati wa Anita Baijuka. Wakati Raila ameleta hiyo wale donors walikuwa wanapeana grant ya silamu upgrading wali offer 75% of the value ya hiyo project. Ikasemekana serikali ya Kenya iweke 25%, lakini wakati imefika kwa serikali ya Kenya walikataa kuwekelea 25%, ndio pia ule alikuwa anatupatia grant alete hiyo nyingine kwa sababu Raila asipati hiyo credit.
Well, interestingly, someone is watching and they say, yes, well, you articulate what it is that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga has done and we appreciate that. But I mean, today, Kibra is still a slum.
Ni kwa sababu hii ilikuwa rejected. Uislamu upgrading ilikuwa inamaanisha nini wakati Raila alikuwa analeta? Ilikuwa ya Kibra, ilikuwa ya Mathare, ilikuwa ya Korogoso, ilikuwa ya Majengo. Silam upgrading. Ndio sababu alikuwa analeta. Alafu on top of that, affordable houses. Na katika manifesto ya Raila, in fact hakuna maana hata ya
it's hugely about what is
in his manifesto.
The big four agenda as well.
No, hizo ndio zile vitu Raila anataka kuaddress. Na katika manifesto yake ukiangalia
more than 1 minute. Edah, there you go. Your response to what is happening right here and your expectation today.
I already said that.
Yes,
what
you already mentioned what you
meeting.
expect out of this.
I think right now we need to get over past that conversation of Uhuru and Ruto falling out. I think one of the things I've had people accuse Ruto of is gross insubordination, outshining his master, interference of the system and ensuring that, or rather interfering with the day-to-day running of institutions such as parastatus and so on and so forth. And I think they fell out and it's bitter. It's one of those breakups that leave casualties. And it's been loud, it's been messy. And Ruto managed to move out and create something for himself. He was able to get followers and leaders to form UDA and eventually Kenya Kwanza. And so I think we need to get over the past that they did not work together, because in that event, or if it was that bad for him, he should have resigned and said that I'm resigning on these grounds and I'll not continue to attract a salary because clearly I'm not needed here. Yeah. The president equally should have said that Ruto has done 1, 2, 3 things and therefore I'm firing him. Or I would want us to,
constitutionally
measures.
Well,
no good reason.
Yes.
And if he has no reason, then it means that we are suffering because of fallout between two people who, it has nothing to do with us, and therefore it has resulted to all this bickering that we've seen in media and out in the open. If we get past that point, then we need to talk about issues. Stop shouting words. Just say that this is what I have achieved as a deputy president and I'll build on this legacy. Say, this is what you have missed out on by not electing me 3 times as your president, as Raila Odinga, and this is what I want to build on, or this is what I want to achieve. But if we continue going back to that point of, they fell out, and now because they fell out, Ruto is not liable to all these problems that the government has had and all these challenges that we've experienced. I think that was a bad combination, first of all. And I think we ought to be careful not to make the same mistake again, voting based on, a particular reason or rejecting something, or voting because we want 2 people to come together to overcome something together. I think we need to vote based on ideas and stop making excuses for these people again.
Okay.
Na tusifanye uchaguzi kwa sababu mtu ni wetu. Last general election 2013 hata Wakenya wengi sana walipigia watu kura kwa sababu walikuwa wanataka kuwakata pingu ya ICC. hiyo ni kitu kingine pia ambayo imetuanguza. Baba anataka kufix economy. Ukisikiza manifesto ya baba, for example, empowering ya women, anawaweka na 3 categories. Wale ambao hawajaolewa, wale wameolewa wakadivorce, wale ambao walikuja wakadanganywa, kila mmoja baba amempangia. Then baba anasema anataka ngoja.
What is that? That is what she's asking. What is that?
Iko kwa manifesto yake, angalia. Alafu anasema anataka kupeana free quality education. Ukimaliza kusoma unapata industries ziko pale, unaenda unaajiriwa. Ule ambaye hataka kuajiriwa kama ni kijana anapewa loan, anafanya kazi, baada ya miaka 7 ndiye analipa.
Okay.
So katika manifesto ya baba ukiangalia kuna maana hata ya family planning, kwa sababu maternity free, kliniki free, masomo free, stima free, maji free. Yani baba anataka kucreate concept.
Where will you get the money from?
Where will you get the money from? And I mean, I think it's the same conversation where Kenyans say that we really do not have a problem with paying tax, but just make sure that you enable us.
Ngoja nikujibu mahali pesa iko. Number 1, Kenya ni nchi iko na pesa. Ile kitu tunataka ni kuhakikisha tumezimanage vizuri. Tumefunga masimo ya kuiba, ya looting na corruption. Then Raila anataka kustreamline foreign investment policy ambayo inamaliza bureaucracy, inapatia nafasi investors wanakuja kuwekeza katika nchi yetu.
And you suppose all these other presidential candidates do not want to do that?
Of course, they all want to do that. Let me tell you. You see,
let's allow Wakili.
In 2017, even in 2013, nobody would have imagined that Ruto would be the force that he is today. Even in Uhuru's bedroom, he's taken over. Why? It is because the people can see something that these Azimio people and the president don't want to see, and if they do see, they don't want to acknowledge. The man delivered in the first term of Uhuruto government.
Okay.
If you walk throughout this country, you'll find roads. If you walk throughout this country, you'll find electricity.
But he did not do that on his own.
He didn't do it on its own, of course. But then that is the reason why they fell out. They fell out because at some point somebody realized, no, this fellow is going to take all the credit. But even after he was pushed out of the government, Mount Kenya has been able to acknowledge that were it not for Ruto, we would not have had peace in 2013.
Right.
Why not for Ruto? We would not have had the kind of development that we've witnessed the last 10 years. And even after he's been pushed out, you can see that some people have put their neck out for him, from Central, from Northeastern. He's been able to unify the country. You cannot say Ruto, Odat team is from one region today. He has Musalia. It is a national outfit, isn't it? He's been able to make inroads even where Uhuru couldn't make inroads. In Mombasa, in Western, even in Nyanza, he was received. He was well received in Kondele. That is the kind of man he is. Yesterday I was walking somewhere in Ngara, and there was, a drunkard walking by the roadside, and you could hear him shouting Ruto Uda. Shouting Ruto Uda. At one point in this country, Raila enjoyed that kind of following. But after going to bed with Uhuru and losing his democratic credentials, keeping silent in the face of injustice, keeping silent in the face of corruption, keeping silent in the face of the kind of suffering that Kenyans are going through today, you cannot make out the difference between him and the people that he's been condemning.
And that Ruto is a better option to right Honorable Raila Odinga, yet Raila is keeping silent on the injustices in this very government that Ruto
Yesterday I was watching the TV and he was asked, what are your plans? What would be your immediate plans to lower the cost of living?
Yes.
And he rambled for a few minutes, but what I got out from it is that he doesn't want to condemn the president. He
says he's tried.
Yes, he blamed Ukraine. I mean, our grants don't come from Ukraine.
But don't you think he's changed tact in the sense that, for in the past we've known him for, always criticizing and criticizing and criticizing.
He has always been known as the person who leads revolutions.
Right.
As a person
for a long time he's been the check against the injustice that would otherwise have been meted on
and nothing
Kenya.
much happened after all.
It is not so much
He
about
was denied
power.
the presidency
It's not so
times.
much about power. It is about seeing to it that Kenyans live a better life. I would rather he stays in opposition and see to it that there is no corruption, that the cost of living is manageable, that roads are constructed, than having him in government and keeping quiet in the face of all that injustice.
I think that's unfair.
All right.
That is very unfair. Raila Odinga should not be expected to always be in opposition, fighting for Kenyans.
Right.
At some point, if he wants the presidency and he has to go to any extent that he has to win the presidency, he should be allowed to. He should not be expected, corruption. And that burden should not be placed on him alone to be fighting in the face of... Look, you see this country right now, just a minute. We no longer have activism. Look at Boniface Mwangi. All these people who would take to the streets to fight, to condemn the government, they no longer exist because we lack inspiration. Yeah, and everybody is trying to fight to survive. So they go where they think they are going to get mana.
Okay.
So expecting Raila Odinga to remain as the face of opposition, as a person who always puts the government to task, is unfair. Look at our parliament, this 12th parliament. It's a lame duck parliament. They've allowed the government to overstep. They've allowed the government to overborrow. They keep raising the ceiling. They have allowed the president to get away with everything.
I mean, including Azimio MPs.
And mostly UDA candidates, because they are the majority. From the Jubilee candidates are more in parliament. So you cannot place this burden on one single person.
That is how Raila has lost his edge. That is how he's lost his edge. You know, Raila of today has no credentials to hold again. He cannot hold...
Ruto should have taken up from him to become now the face of, the person who represents the people of the lower cadre.
Kuna mali ninataka ni correct kidogo. Hii kitu ambayo inaitwa amani. Amani ya 2008 ililetwa na handshake between Raila na Kibaki. Amani ya saizi imeletwa kwa sababu ya handshake between Uhuru na Raila. Nimesikia Ruto akisema hapa nimeona kila wakati akienda kufanya mambo ya marambesa makanisa. Kuna kanisa ambaye inaitwa Kiambaa ambaye ilichomeka na watoto wakachomwa wakarudishwa ndani. Hiyo kanisa mbona hajaanza kuchangia hiyo?
Let's take a quick break because we also need to have you speak to your people, and because we're supposed to finish as early as now, I asked for 10 minutes grace period for us to probably come and wind it up on a very good note. So after this break.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
Well, do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. The next set of millionaires are farmers. As we know, agriculture has been and still is the backbone of our economy. As we traverse the different counties to meet different farmers, we ensure to get the story of how they started farming and even how they continue to penetrate the market and overcome the challenges.
Hapa, the reason why niliweka goose na si ducks. Goose, they are very easy to maintain.
A lot of farmers keep on calling, inquiring, whether
like they would never come together, came together. And that's a piece that we keep talking about, that two opposing sides came together. Just like Ruto and Uhuru came together in 2013, before that it looked like they would never come together. And because of that, they came together and they brought now peace between the Kalenjins, the Kikuyu, or the two regions, rather, not particularly those two tribes. And so it's a good thing. It's a good calculation. It was a good strategy on this, for the president. What they failed to estimate or to figure out is how then it would translate into this general election.
Okay.
And that's why we've seen a majority of central politicians have moved further and further away from the president as new, and some who are struggling to hold on remain on his side. What, however, I would like to say or to state is that in politics, strategy is key. It's all about strategy. If Raila Odinga wants to win it badly, he will do anything to win it. If Ruto wants to win it badly, he's going to go to any and every extent to win it. What we need to condemn, however, is language that is inciting and things that look like they are going to create animosity during the election time. And that is just leaders who spread propaganda, spread hate campaigns. We saw what is happening in Nakuru. It is being linked to the election. So that needs to remain condemned so that we can move, past that. But looking at Raila Odinga and Uhuru coming together, it is for their own good. And anyone should have their own strategy and should be respected and allowed to maneuver however they wish.
All right, Wakili, you want to say something? Make it very brief.
Nilikuwa nataka kusema Raila Odinga anataka create conducive environment kwa kila mtu, especially kama sisi jamii ya Wameru ambayo tunategemea mumea wa miraa. Tunataka nauliza wenzangu tupigie Raila kura awe head of state, kwa sababu biashara kama sisi miraa tunauza ngambo. Sahizi ukiangalia Uingereza, Holland na Somalia mahali tulikuwa tunauza miraa, tumepoteza market kwa sababu hatuna serikali ambayo iko na political goodwill ya create trade bilateral vizuri. Sasa mimi nauliza miraa dealers uhakikisha Raila amekuwa president, tutumie hii nafasi yake ya political goodwill kutuletea mazao ya miraa, lakini hawezi kunegotiate saisi akiwa raia kawaida. Raila amekaa juu ya mawe for 77 good years. Na katika hiyo 77 good years amekaa nje, bado amekaa detain. Na hiyo detention hatujaambiwa ni kwa nini amekaa detain, kama familia, kama jamii, kama Wakenya hatujaijua. So tumpatie nguvu akae pale kama rais, aweze kunegotiate na hizi nchi zingine tupate biashara ya miraa. Hiyo ikiwa part of the conducive environment ile sisi watu wa miraa tunaweza kufaidika naye kutokana na Raila Odinga.
Philip, it's interesting that everybody, bargains on regional basis. Yes. It is the best bargainer that, is lucky enough to have goodies go their way. We keep asking this question. Is it that Central Kenya is a good negotiator in comparison to the rest of the country? And why in this time and age should we focus much on regions as opposed to what benefits the entire nation?
Of course, Central Kenya forms a huge chunk of this country. You have to agree that they are the majority. They are all over the country, so they are an important electoral bloc. If at all you are to win the elections, you cannot discount their value in any campaign. That said, though, I think I'm supposed to be making my closing remarks, isn't it?
Well, just make it on that, and then I'll give you a chance to make your closing remarks.
Yes. So for Ruto, it speaks volumes that he was able to tie in Mount Kenya and in good time. Mount Kenya people are known to vote, as much as they do vote along tribal lines, they do vote for their interests. Only that most of the time the tribe and the presidential candidate and their interests have aligned. This time they haven't aligned, but they have still made their stand known. And I can tell you that it is informed by their interests. They know what is at stake for them, and that is why they choose to go with Ruto. Ruto has demonstrated that he has the energy. He has demonstrated that he's bringing on board fresh ideas. He's demonstrated that he is loyal, is somebody that you can rely on. When he said that he would stand with Uhuru in 2013, he did, and he did it to the hilt, and he delivered the Kalenjin votes, and they did win. He stood with his brother again in 2017, only that his brother would turn against him after that. Why didn't he turn against him before that? So I would say, you know, Kenya again is we say that it's a country. We are yet to coalesce into one country. We are tribal countries that have negotiated to sit on the table together and form one single country. And that is why inclusivity is key. And to me, I'm glad that Ruto has been able to breach the tribal divide. He's been able to bring Mount Kenya on board. He's been able to craft a team that has a national outlook. And we have to give the man credit. I mean, while it's not for the fact that Uhuru is supporting Raila, I can tell you that he would have gone home with less than 25% of the national votes.
Well, interesting. Edah, I don't know whether we should call this a sigh of relief or what. When Munya says, let's allow Edah to say something and then we come to you. When Munya says that, well, a reprieve coming to Kenyans, because then they have to make some adjustments necessary towards making sure that they give us unga at a lower price. Perhaps it could not even go lower than 150. Should we celebrate? Just what games?
Not just yet. I think it's just a campaign strategy. Because if you look at that, that recommendation, it's not sustainable. What we need to do is ensure we farm more. And actually, I think this I need to say this. I keep telling people that what we need to tap into is the potential that we have as a country. We're talking about 60% of the total population being youth. What do youth have? They have energy. What do we have as a country? Again, we have land that is arable, good weather all year round. If a single presidential candidate will just focus on farming, large-scale commercial farming.
Because again, the unga that we're talking about, or the maize that we're talking about, it should be imported into the country. They're actually saying that yes, we're going to import.
So what we need to, we don't need these knee-jerk reactions. We need sustainable solutions. And the sustainable solution here is farm for local consumption and for export to generate income. But if it is not anything that is a long-term solution, then it means that after the election, we could get back to where we are. I lack faith in most of these public servants. I lack faith sometimes in this government because they have populist measures. They don't really address our problems seriously. They just want to cover it up with a blanket and pretend that the problem is gone. But soon we shall be back here.
Are you done?
Yeah.
All right. Yes.
Mambo ya unga, it's not only unga. Ukiangalia mpango mzima ya Raila about
fundi security. Unapiga campaign kali sana. Mimi tukimaliza hapa unapata invoice ya TV47, si ndio?
Ni sawa, nilikuwa nasema ukiangalia mpango mzima one of the agenda katika Raila Odinga manifesto ni agriculture. Anataka kuempower agriculture, anataka kuhakikisha kila ardhi inafanywa kazi. Wakati Ruto alikuwa Minister of Agriculture, alileta fertilizer ambayo iko na chemicals, ilichoma mchanga yote. Wakati ukienda kulima kitu kama ni mahindi, ilikuwa ikifika size hii inakufa, inatani jelo. Na sasa hiyo amehaya land DRC Congo, ndio hawa anatusupply mahindi. Hiyo ni akili mbaya. Vitu kama hizo, hiyo ni impunity kubwa. Vitu kama hizo ndio baba anataka kumalizana nazo. Na upande mwingine ni mambo ya security. Security haiwezi patikana kama vijana hawana jobs. That's why baba anataka create conducive environment ambayo inahakikisha vijana wetu wako kazi. Na kuna watu awangezaliwa na kuitwa majina bila meaning. Jina Raila inamaanisha reliable African intellectual liberation architect.
We cannot hold
inamaanisha instituting of less of legislative order.
Okay.
Now ndinge inamaanisha often dedicated inspirational for national growth and accountability.
We will go back, you know, the good thing is that we
sasa tumeleta ile inaitwa BMW, Baba must win.
Baba must win.
Hiyo ndio BMW.
All right, that's interesting. You know, we have this segment going on our social media platforms. So for those ones who did not get it right, they can always go back and and get it right. But in defense of your boss, and you know, some would be allegations, some would be political rhetorics, some would be, you know, just to make the conversation spicy. But at the end of the day, it is important that the electorate then understands the factual aspects of all these things. As we probably sum it up, what would you make of the fact that, you know, they come in with the terrible painting, a terrible brush to paint Ruto dirty? And, you know, for the longest of time, perhaps we've not found mechanisms to make sure that, yes, this person is behind bars, if at all, he is as ugly.
Let me tell you, Kenyans like joking that, you know, miti ile inagongwa na mawe ni ile iko na matunda, isn't it? You can see the amount of energy, the amount of funds, the amount of media coverage that has gone into fighting Ruto. Why are they fighting the man? Because they can see the potential he holds. They know that if everything remains constant, he's definitely the president come 2022. I can tell you the only time, I come from a farming area. I come from West Pokot, which borders Trans Nzoia, and I've done farming, I've done maize farming. And I can tell you the only time, immediately I got employment, I ventured into farming. And the only time I made profit from maize farming was when Ruto was the Minister of Agriculture.
All right. And therefore,
he knows what the farmer man needs. He knows that we need subsidized fertilizer. Right now, a bag of fertilizer is retailing at 6,000. I can tell you for a fact that no farmer is going to make profit the end of this year. You can see the way the rains are. The rainfall has never been this poor for a long time. I can tell you if this year is bad, next year will be even worse. And I agree with Edah here that our solution to the high inflation and cost of living is addressing agriculture. Kenya is an agrarian economy. Let's not lie to ourselves that we will industrialize and do what and do what. We don't have the engineers, we don't have the capacity, but we have people who are very good in farming. We have pastoralists who can rear animals. We have people with large tracts of land who can do maize farming, coffee farming, and so on and so forth, but they are not receiving the support. We don't have extension services. The price of fertilizer has gone over the roof. Just when the farmers were going to plow their land, we had a fuel crisis in the country, an artificial one for that. We cannot blame that on Ukraine. Somebody didn't want to pay the subsidies they had promised the distributors. We had fuel crunch at the worst time period, and in fact that is where our problem started. And since then things have gotten worse and worse.
Every day.
There is a day actually I had to wake up at 4 in the morning to go queue. Then I got to the petrol station. The fellow didn't want to open it up because he had rumors that petrol prices would be increased on that day. So I spent almost 2 days at the queue. And that was something that artificial, something that can only be done by somebody so insensitive. And had Raila been the old Raila Ambole Odinga that we know, that he would have spoken and that issue would have been resolved within a day. But it went on for weeks.
Well, unfortunately.
And that is where we find ourselves.
He mentioned something at that point.
So what I want to say is that we have to look at our farmer. We have to empower our farmer. We have to make sure that he's able to go to his farm, plow, be productive, and at the end of the day we have to see to it that he makes profit.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Paul, so we have to close.
Geopolitics is in to affect. Usiseme ati vita ya Russia na Ukraine haitu affect.
Of course it does affect us, but again, they also say the ripple effects of this in most cases will be felt like 3 months after. Not almost.
Inatu affect not even before the war.
Because inatu affect lakini baba ataifix. Unasikia anasema one county one product.
Japheth, we have to come to a close. Perhaps I should give you a chance to give your parting shots and make it very brief.
Yes, mimi nasema tuchague Raila kama mnataka hii nchi ipone. Mambo ya economy ni lazima yangaziwe on air, land and sea. Usitarajie mtu ambaye ako kwa serikali miaka 10 anakuja kutupatia ahadi na useme huyo ataponya. Hakuna kitu anakuja kuponya. Kwanza tupatie baba nafasi alete nguvu mpya, hari mpya na watu wapya na maisha mapya katika nchi yetu. Na hakuna mtu anatenti Ruto. Hivyo ndio yako. Jina Ruto inamaanisha wrong.
We have to close it. No. You see, we cannot take that. Well, we put a disclaimer on that, and we say that yes, we do not encourage such right here. But once again, Japheth Morocco, asante sana for creating time to be with us this morning. Edah, as you speak to the people of Kabete.
Thank you so much. I'm running as an independent candidate in Kabete, and I'd like to take this chance to ask the voters to consider me as the next best thing that can ever happen to them. We've had very many challenges in Kabete, and one of the things I keep talking about is that we have to educate our children up to tertiary level. The only way you can be able to deal with poverty is through education. It equalizes. It's an equalizer. Yeah, the rich and the poor eat on the same table because of education. So we have to ensure that we pump more money into funding education sufficiently, so that in the long run we have families that have educated children who uplift themselves and they uplift their families from poverty. So my main agenda, apart from the youth, which are my two main agendas, is education. And I'm telling people that receiving all the money that we get from national government every year, if we were able to put much of that money into funding education, then we'll have more transition of kids from high school to from primary schools to good high schools, and eventually to institutions of higher learning, which is what I think will liberate our people. So that is the ground upon which I ask the people of Kabete to consider me, and hopefully we'll get there.
All the best, all the best. Edah Wambui, Member of Parliament, candidate Kabete constituency. Wakili, as we close it.
Yes, as I close, first and foremost, I would like to extend my support to my sister here, Edah. I wish her all the best. And the people of Kabete, please, you cannot pass such an opportunity. Let's have people with integrity, with competence, such as Edah being elected into Parliament. That said, mine goes to the people on the ground. You know, we talk about so much about Raila and Ruto, but the person that will change your life is your MCA. The person that will change your life is your governor. These are the people that you really need to focus upon. What kind of governor do you have right now? And what kind of an MCA do you intend to vote into the county assembly come the elections? We have to vote people that are competent. Let's not even talk about integrity. Let's focus on competence. Is that candidate competent to oversight the billions of shillings that are coming to the county? If he's not competent, then don't vote for that particular person. The same with governor. On governor, it's not about competence, it's about integrity. Is the person in office, can you vote for him as a person who is professional and of high integrity? If they don't have integrity, then get rid of him. Yes.
And a good governing policy.
Thank you.
Mambo ya Mount Kenya imeteleza kwa Ruto. Sasa sio kama ile wakati tulikuwa tunauza baba kama bangi huko. Sasa amekubalika kama dawa ya Panadol.
All right, Japheth Morocco, thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. Edah Wambui, as well as Wakili Phillip Ambole. It's on this very note that we close it. We have extended it a bit, but I'm glad that you could hold and make your submissions to this level. We close it, but not in totality. On standby, we have Willie Dennis Jeru, that is in Naivasha, Nakuru County. And of course, speaking to the people down there, so much is happening. And therefore, we'd love to hear what you have to say as we also get to contribute and learn together. Willie, if you can hear me.
Thank you very much. And as you said, it is a good morning. Good morning, Linda. Coming to you live from Kamere Estate here in Naivasha. It is about 21 kilometers from Naivasha town, where we again meet the locals here who do best what they can in regards to the politics of the day, current affairs, and pertinently the itching thing about soaring food prices. But without taking much time, we are just going to be hearing from our guys here. Ndugu, tuanze na wewe, karibia tueleze mambo ya siasa za nchi kwa leo inakaaje na mambo kama hayo.
Kwa majina naitwa Delmas. Huku siasa imeshika. Lakini sasa wanasiasa wamepotelea kwa siasa, lakini wamesahau mwananchi. Juu ukiangalia wote wanaongea tu kuhusu nani atakuwa president, lakini waongei kuhusu mambo ya unga, mafuta, wamenyamaza sana. Sasa sisi tunataka hata mmoja ajitokeze na atuambie kitu anaweza fanya. At least kutupunguza maisha yetu, sio kutuambia tutapunguza maisha na wapunguzi.
Lakini wanasema siasa ni about interest. Interest hizi ni kama azilengi mwananchi?
Interest zao ni zao, si zetu. Hao wanafanya interest tu zao zinawasaidia hao wenyewe. Sisi tuna shida kawaida. Ukiangalia una elect mtu anakusahau, anakuja anapotea.